Disclaimer. I do not claim ownership of this story. All rights belong to the original creators. Title: I'm drawing manga in Naruto. Page 81. Many of the drawings already contain figures and backgrounds. Akabane glanced at them. Most were fan art of Naruto, such as a portrait of Haku as a woman. Yes, Grandma, your painting skills are indeed quite good, but your ability to depict light and shadow is still lacking, and also the expression in the eyes. Akabane picked up the best painting and began to point out its flaws in a long, rambling manner. Mito Uzumaki was very quiet, nodding as she listened, as if she really understood. In stark contrast to her, Tsunade looked completely bewildered, having no idea what they were talking about. By the way, if you have the time, you can sell or give away your artwork at comic conventions. At the end, Akabane added a special sentence. That sounds great, I'll give it a try. Mito Uzumaki picked up her brush, dipped it in ink, closed her eyes and pondered for a moment, then quickly began to paint. Her hands are very steady, and she draws very quickly. Within minutes, the outline of a character was already visible. Huh, is this me? Tsunade was initially surprised, but then felt ashamed and tried to snatch the painting away. In the scene, a young Tsunade throws the dice, holding a large sum of cash in her hand, and is overjoyed. While their appearances aren't exactly the same, their expressions and demeanor are perfectly replicated. It's hard to believe that Mito Uzumaki really grasped this level of understanding in just a few words. Is this genius? The talent of older, homebound women is truly terrifying. Akabane was secretly alarmed. As expected, when it comes to painting, you can improve much faster with guidance. I'll put a price tag on this painting and put it up for sale later. Grandma, you can't have this painting. Tsunade's face turned pale instantly upon hearing this. If this painting were to circulate, Tsunade's reputation would be completely ruined. Really? Then I'll draw another one. A few minutes later, another drawing of young Tsunade was produced. In this drawing, Tobirama Senju is holding young Tsunade, and the scene is very heartwarming and cute. No. This one isn't acceptable either. Chapter 92 Sakura? This is a self-portrait. Tsukumo, even if Kurama Akabane provides the theory, this kind of technique only exists in theory. This is the basic lightning technique for counterattack, and I feel like I'm only one step away from it. In the Forest of Death. Tsukumo Hataki sat on the grass, panting heavily. Beside him stood the current head of the Hataki clan, Hataki Kazami. He was an elite jonin and also the father of Hataki Tsukumo. Okay, let's try again. If it fails this time, you'll have to take a week off. Kazami Hataki solemnly replied. Yes, father. Tsukumo took a deep breath, repeatedly rehearsing in his mind the hand seals and chakra release process that he and his father had devised. Z, Wu, Shin. With a series of hand seals, the chakra within him gradually gathered in his hands. Lightning attribute chakra is extremely violent and its offensive power is terrifying. That's why it's also very difficult to control. Tsukumo gritted his teeth, constantly controlling and compressing, forcibly condensing the lightning chakra into a shape. Zzz. A piercing sound suddenly rang out, and under the stimulation of the bright light, Tsukumo and Kazami's pupils contracted simultaneously. Silvery white lightning danced continuously in my palm. Chakra was still being consumed, and the power of the lightning was growing stronger and stronger until it became impossible to look directly at it with the naked eye. Drink! With a loud shout, Shuomao dashed out, reaching 100 paces away in the blink of an eye. Boom! A loud bang rang out, and the rock that was hit shattered instantly, sending fragments flying everywhere. Kazami Hataki arrived in an instant, cleaving the rocks in two with a single stroke. Then, with a flick of his sleeve, he led Tsukumo out of the rubble. At this moment, Tsukumo had already fallen into a coma. Kazami's feelings were complicated. He knew that this technique was theoretically feasible, but it was too difficult to implement, even for an elite jonin like himself. However, my own son did it. Tsukumo, you are amazing. He thought to himself, a hint of pride appearing on his usually indifferent face. Drawing is very simple. Tsunade, you should learn it too. After all, it's a skill. Mito Uzumaki said with a smile. Do not want. Tsunade turned her head away, looking displeased. In her opinion, Mito Uzumaki was a morbidly humorous old lady who was very annoying. Drawing is very useful. Mito Uzumaki stroked her head, looking at the newly painted picture. This painting includes Hashirama Senju, Tobarama Senju, Tsunade, and her parents. A family photo. Even if you lose everything after I leave, you can still make a living by painting. Grandma, what nonsense are you talking about? Tsunade's face turned red, just like a child throwing a tantrum. Silly boy. Every human being will eventually die. If it weren't for the fact that Konoha was facing a generational gap and her granddaughter hadn't grown up yet, Mito Uzumaki would have already passed away to meet Hashirama Senju. Akabane remains silent. This topic is making me feel really awkward. However, one thing is true, without Mito's supervision, Tsunade would have really lost everything. Just kidding, I'm in my prime and will live for many more years. Mito Uzumaki smiled. She didn't say she wanted to sell the painting, but carefully preserved it using a sealing technique. Tsunade sat in the pavilion, puffing out her cheeks. She picked up a set of drawing tools, paper, and pen and began to draw casually. With just a few strokes, the basic shape has already emerged. Not bad. Uzumaki Mito exclaimed in surprise. She's been practicing for 3 whole days now. Of course. Tsunade was extremely pleased with herself. Drawing wasn't difficult at all. It must be said that she is indeed talented, but her talent lies not in painting, but in her hands. Her hands are very steady, and her precision is excellent, so the lines she draws are very smooth and beautiful. But if you can't, you just can't. A few minutes later. Look, it's not bad at all. Tsunade chuckled, somewhat smug. Mito Uzumaki glanced at it, then fell into deep thought. Sakura? Her tone was hesitant. Because it's really hard to tell who she is just from the painting. Tsunade looked completely bewildered, staring at the drawing for a few seconds before turning to Akabane. In her eyes, Akabane saw a longing for recognition. However, to be honest, while her lines are well defined, her facial features, expressions, and movements are a mess. Sakura? Sorry, I don't approve of this extra's face. He really wanted to laugh, but for the sake of his life, he forced himself to hold it in. It's clearly me. Tsunade threw down the drawing in frustration, instantly losing her last remaining enthusiasm for painting. But Akabane finally couldn't hold back and burst out laughing. Tsunade herself? This is too abstract, who could recognize it? Now that you mention it, I think it does look somewhat similar. Mito Uzumaki said earnestly. However, if Tsunade said this at this time, she obviously wouldn't believe it. Ahem. I've undergone rigorous training, so I can usually hold back my laughter. Akabane coughed lightly and said. Enough. Enraged, Tsunade's chakra surged, and she almost used her super strength technique. However, Mito Uzumaki reached out and gently grabbed. Page 82. Instantly, the chakra fluctuations disappeared. No jokes, I need to get back to work. He got angry out of embarrassment. Akabane decisively changed the subject to avoid further upsetting Tsunade's fragile heart. With one hand seal, 2 clones appeared. Everyone, enough with the chit-chat, let's get to work. After Akabane finished speaking, he didn't give them time to make a fuss and started drawing himself. Upon seeing this, the 2 clones also began selecting tools. Shadow clones? You're quite the lazybones. Mito Uzumaki glanced at it, stretched, and then. Shadow clone technique. Chakra surged, and 8 clones appeared in the next second. Please take this time to work hard, everyone. Mito Uzumaki bowed slightly, showing great politeness even to her clone. The clones also bowed before starting their work. Akabane sighed inwardly. Other people's clones, and then look at his own, the difference is obvious. This is boring. I'm going to watch them work. Tsunade pouted. After trying it out, she discovered that drawing is not as easy as it seems. However, she wasn't really interested in this technology, and even though it was challenging, she was too lazy to delve into it. Don't leave this area. Understood. After another round of nagging, Mito Uzumaki finally let Tsunade leave. Akabane really wanted to call out to her. He was left alone with Mito Uzumaki, and he felt uneasy. Although she looks only 30 years old, like a young married woman, her heart is black. A pavilion, where a dozen or so people are working hard. After only half an hour, Akabane was already groaning inwardly. What was it like to work under the watchful eyes of his elders? If I slack off, I'll probably get scolded. I work hard, but it's too tiring for me. Annoying. While feeling annoyed, Akabane strongly condemned Tsunade's act of sneaking away. I've drawn several already, and you've only drawn this little bit. After finishing a drawing, Mito Uzumaki smiled gently and said, "You must never do two things at once, especially not on the battlefield." Yes, mother-in-law. Akabane wiped away a tear, cursing Tsunade, who had tricked him, several times in his heart. Chapter 93 Closing Program, The Blue Bird. More than an hour later, Akabane dispelled his shadow clones. Are these posters enough? Mito Uzumaki was somewhat puzzled. Of course it's not enough, but I've reached my limit. Akabane said wearily. This was his plan to escape. As long as he said his body couldn't withstand the shadow clones, Mito Uzumaki would never force him again. Mito Uzumaki nodded slightly, paused for a moment, and then asked, "So, how do you plan to arrange the program?" As an elder and one of the sponsors of this event, she has the right to inquire about it. The opening ceremony will feature a showdown between Kakashi and Zabuza, followed by an hour of free time for sightseeing and shopping, and finally a closing ceremony performance. What are the specific arrangements for the program? Mito Uzumaki nodded calmly. I won't go into the free performances and sales in the middle, that depends on individual skills. For the closing ceremony, I plan to include the scene of Bai being killed, and then. As Akabane was saying this, a sudden inspiration struck him. Besides these, you can also add songs. For example, The Blue Bird. What are your plans? I'm planning to add a song, but I'm afraid no one will sing it. He certainly couldn't do The Blue Bird, but with his memory and illusion magic, he could recreate it through illusion. We're currently missing a singer. Mito Uzumaki's eyes lit up immediately, and she turned slightly to the side, asking, "How about me?" What? Akabane's eyes held a hint of suspicion. At your age, can you really manage? Kid, don't let my appearance fool you, I actually have more talents than you can imagine. Mito Uzumaki said softly yet proudly. However, I can only convey the song through illusion. Can the one inside your body do it? Akabane was somewhat worried. Don't worry, it's very well behaved. Mito Uzumaki gently stroked her belly, causing the sealed ninetails to tremble. I dare not move. At least it can see the outside world now, but if the old witch adds another layer of seal, it will be like being in prison. If Mito Uzumaki were to sing, it would be a really great highlight. Akabane agreed in his heart and immediately mobilized his chakra to activate the genjutsu in an instant, a genjutsu without any harm or scene, only a gentle melody. As the melody began, Mito Uzumaki closed her eyes and listened quietly. These voices are manifested from Akabane's memories, and therefore are not stable. After a long time, the illusion ended. It wasn't Akabane who stopped casting the spell, but rather Mito Uzumaki who deliberately interrupted the illusion. Okay. She opened her eyes and quietly recalled for a moment. Next second. Flying. The familiar song began, accompanied by Mito Uzumaki's own rhythm. Halfway through the song, Akabane couldn't help but tear up. The Blue Bird brings back so many memories. In the second half of the song, Tsunade came following the sound. She didn't enter the pavilion, but instead hid outside and secretly eavesdropped. Before I knew it, tears were streaming down my face. Tsunade was moved because she understood the emotion in the song, The Bluebird is free, but her grandmother is not. Soon after, the song came to an end. Mito Uzumaki said regretfully, without musical instruments, it just doesn't feel quite right. Very good already. Akabane's words contained not a trace of flattery. I still have my old musical instruments at home, which I can use for accompaniment. Mito Uzumaki smiled and said, don't worry, I've already memorized the tune. Communicating with geniuses is so convenient. Akabane felt a pang of envy, while glancing at the bushes ahead. Tsunade, don't you need any help over there? He wore a Mito-style smile, gentle yet cunning. Hey, Tsunade's back. Did I sing well? Mito Uzumaki already knew. Tsunade wiped away the tears on her face and then emerged from her hiding place. Although I was very touched, I couldn't express it verbally. It doesn't sound good at all. He was clearly moved to tears, but he still had to be stubborn. What a hypocrite! Seemingly aware that her words weren't convincing, Tsunade pursed her lips and then asked, what's the name of this song? Blue Bird. Akabane said, it means to break free from constraints and fly into the sky. It's a very nice song title, and it fits the mood perfectly. That's what Mito Uzumaki said with a sigh. Tsunade was stunned for a moment. She thought the song was from somewhere in the land of whirlpools, but she didn't expect it to be Akabane's. Then let's use this song for the closing ceremony. Akabane smiled and then said, but at the end, there's one more illusion game. I am looking forward. Mito Uzumaki smiled slightly. Among the Konoha Genjutsu ninjas, the one with the most ingenuity and tricks is probably this little boy in front of me. But this is quite interesting, otherwise life would be too boring. By the way, Tsunade, how's everything going on everyone else's side? The restoration work on most of the site has been completed, with only a few tunnels still needing further reinforcement. Tsunade didn't slack off, she actually went to check on the site's repair progress. So now that the repairs are complete, we can start setting up the site, right? Mito Uzumaki looked at Akabane. In this respect, he was the expert. As for the arrangement, you can do whatever you want. Page 83. Akabane didn't know much about anime conventions, so he didn't have many requirements regarding the setup. Judging from Mito Uzumaki's art style, her taste is not bad, and the effect of her leading the arrangement should not be too bad. The little guy is going to slack off again, but I really like this job. Mito Uzumaki smiled and asked, so, what are you going to do? Don't talk nonsense, I didn't mean to slack off. Akabane quickly denied it. He admitted that at first he did want to sneak out and find a place to sleep, but when he thought about how much work he still had to do, he immediately gave up the idea. However, Tsunade clearly did not believe it, her eyes filled with suspicion. Since the esteemed guest is coming, the performance cannot be improvised. Akabane immediately explained. That makes a lot of sense. So, how do you plan to arrange it? Let's go check on Tsukumo Hatake first. Akabane was well aware of Tsukumo's talent, and he believed that given enough time, Tsukumo would definitely be able to develop his own Chidori and Raikiri. Of course. Whether it's Chidori or Raikiri, the essential difference is not significant. If you have Chidori, you can add Kakashi to Zabuza and Haku's final scene. If you don't have it, then cut out the scene where Kakashi releases Lightning Blade. I'll leave this to you. Akabane waved his hand and set off immediately. He didn't want to stay even half a minute longer. Grandma, I still think he's trying to slack off. After he left, Tsunade pouted and said, Tsunade, life will be more wonderful if you turn a blind eye every now and then. Mito's words seemed to have a hidden meaning. Yes, Grandma. Tsunade knew that Mito Uzumaki was referring to her secret gambling. Besides, don't you think your own designs and arrangements are more beautiful and wonderful than others' opinions? After thinking for a while, Mito Uzumaki picked up her pen and began to draw. Chapter 94, Digging a Pit for Me to Fall Into? Tsukumo really developed ninjutsu? Back to the comic book shop. Before Akabane could catch his breath, he learned some earth-shattering news from Kurama Unro. The Hatake clan sent someone to say that it was successful, but it seems that Tsukumo also fell into a coma and was sent to the hospital for recuperation and treatment. Kurama Unro said. Was he taken to the hospital? Akabane's eyelids twitched involuntarily. Just how hard was this kid trying? A mere ninjutsu. He talked to Tsukumo about Chidori because he genuinely hoped that Tsukumo could develop it, but it would be a waste of his health to research it. Yes, it seems to be due to overuse of lightning release chakra. Kurama Unro said. That is not bad. Akabane breathed a sigh of relief. Releasing Chidori requires stimulating the body with lightning release chakra, so constant training will indeed cause some damage. Such injuries can be healed in half a day at most. However, out of concern for his friend, he still set off to the hospital to take a look and inquire about the situation. When he arrived at the hospital, he found that not only he, but also the third Hokage and Danzo had come. Such high specifications? The third generation master, teacher. Akabane looked at them, then at the hospital, and was immediately dumbfounded. Logically speaking, there shouldn't be any major problems. The third Hokage, smoking a cigarette, understood Akabane's doubts and shook his head, saying, "Don't worry, Tsukumo has already woken up. We're just worried that this technique might have too many side effects, so we had him come and have his body checked." Ah. Danzo responded and then continued to wait. So that's it. Akabane nodded, and could only wait along with him. Having read the original work, he naturally knew that Chidori did not cause much damage to the body, but for the third Hokage and his generation, any newly created technique needed to be tested. The Book of Sealing is a preparation for powerful ninjutsu, though it has side effects. My lords, the results are in. Hatake Tsukumo is in good health. In a few hours, the damage caused by the lightning release chakra will heal automatically. Upon hearing this news, the third generation breathed a sigh of relief. At the same time, Danzo glanced discreetly into the room, then turned to Akabane and asked, "Weren't you with Mito-sama setting up the venue? There are some programs that I need to inform you and the three generations of elders about." Akabane said. "Oh?" The third generation looked at him for a second or two, then raised his pipe and asked, "What program?" "Our current program schedule is as follows." Akabane went over the program schedule for the anime convention and explained the plot in more detail. After a moment of contemplation, the third generation agreed, saying, "With the daimyo involved, the program certainly can't be taken lightly. Your suggestion is excellent. If anyone needs help, please let us know." "That's wonderful. I'd like to ask you to play the role of Zabuza." Upon hearing this, Akabane was genuinely delighted. "I was wondering how to bring it up, but now the third generation has come to me of their own accord." This one. The third generation showed signs of hesitation. Zabuza? He remembered the character Shiro, played by Mito Uzumaki. After thinking for a moment, the third Hokage smoked a cigarette to cover it up and said, "I'll be accompanying the daimyo then, so I'm afraid I won't have much free time." "Danzo, how about you do me the favor?" "I am very busy." Danzo glanced at him and coldly refused. He didn't know why the third generation refused, but there was definitely something fishy going on, only a fool would agree. Actually, shadow clones can work just as well. Akabane wore a Mito-style smile. "Creating a shadow clone won't stop you from spending time with the daimyo, will it?" Danzo sneered. Let's go see Shouamao first, we can talk about these things later." The third generation shook his pipe and walked into the house. Danzo sneered at the third Hokage, then said to Akabane, "I won't go inside. Let Tsukumo rest well." "Is teacher." Akabane bowed, fulfilling his courtesy to the utmost. Danzo nodded slightly, turned and walked out of the hospital, showing no intention of going in to meet Tsukumo. Upon entering, he saw Tsukumo and his father, Hatake Kazami. Kazami Hatake looks about 70% like the grown-up Tsukumo. Since he wasn't on a mission, he was dressed in casual clothes, but still maintained a dignified demeanor. "Akaba, I've wanted to meet you for a while, but I never had the chance. Now I've finally met you in person." Kazami Hatake twitched the corners of his mouth, giving a friendly smile. "Uncle, Tsukumo's injury." "It has nothing to do with you, it's his own insistence. He was noticeably stricter with his son, but his barely concealed joy revealed that he was quite proud that Tsukumo had been able to turn Chidori's theory into practice. The third generation sat on an unused chair, glanced at the examination documents, and then put them down. His mind was not on any of these things. Zabuza? Haku was Zabuza's subordinate. How can he play such a role? It's practically an offense to the first Hokage. This kid, you've dug a hole for me to jump into. Thanks to Tobirama Senju, there are many people in Konoha who are proficient in water release, and naturally there are ninjas who can play the role of Zabuza. But who would dare? There was no other way but to bite the bullet and go for it. After all, I had made that boast. The third generation sighed helplessly, having basically figured out Akabane's thoughts. At this moment, Shuoma walked out of the ward, accompanied by Z Xiao. Akabane, I've actually figured out the ninjutsu you envisioned, although it's still quite a distance from Lightning Blade. Shuoma smiled happily. You can tell he was really excited, otherwise he wouldn't have such a wide range of expressions. Raikiri is derived from Chidori, and in essence, there is no difference. Akabane said. Chidori? It really is. The moment the ninjutsu is released, it sounds like the chirping of 1,000 birds. That sharp cry is still unforgettable for Kazami Hatake. Based on its destructive power, it belongs to the A-rank ninjutsu. 3 generations praised its authenticity. You guys are amazing for creating an A-rank ninjutsu. While feeling envious, Zishao couldn't help but feel a little discouraged, as he felt he couldn't keep up with the pace of his 2 teammates' progress. Zishao, don't be discouraged. This technique itself isn't very valuable, they were just messing around. The third generation's words were partly a consolation, and partly a warning to Tsukumo. However, both Tsukumo and Akabane were well aware of this point, so they both nodded in agreement and said, that's right, Chidori itself is an imperfect ninjutsu. Akabane didn't finish his sentence. The ability to transform theory into a real Chidori within 2 or 3 days makes creating a Chidori that suits oneself effortless with such talent. I agreed to that. Page 84. With Shuamao safe, the third generation would naturally have to leave. Before leaving, he said something to Akabane, then left, trying to appear calm. Akabane didn't dwell on the details, knowing that provoking the third Hokage again would only lead to trouble. Now that his objective was achieved, he decided to stop while he was ahead. After the group was discharged from the hospital, he mentioned the time and arrangements for the comic convention to Shuamao and Z Xiao. The main part of the comic convention arrangements is rehearsals. When the third generation reported on the convention arrangements, they mentioned rehearsals, so there's no need for further notification. Since there were still many people to notify, Akabane didn't stay long. After exchanging greetings with them, he went to notify the Uchiha first. The rehearsal is the next day, so these things need to be communicated today. Otherwise, if we rush into the scene, who wouldn't feel weak in the knees when facing the third generation and Mito Uzumaki? Fortunately, I don't have to participate. Akabane was relieved that he had managed to extricate himself from the situation, so he didn't have to participate in the rehearsal. Chapter 95 was great. It's a pity it's too short. The scene setup must match the visuals. Stop dawdling, hurry up over there, everyone, let's do it one last time. At the anime convention, Mito Uzumaki's voice never stopped. Tsunade was quite helpless. In the past 2 or 3 days, she had seen a completely different grandmother, irritable and easily angered, as if she had become a different person. Almost everyone in the group had been scolded, including the third generation clone, who dared not utter a single word in rebuttal. Why can that guy blatantly slack off, while I... Tsunade muttered to herself, growing angrier the more she thought about it. Don't even think about it. That kid is slippery as an eel. He's already extricated himself from the situation. Jiraiya also envied Akabane's state, but unfortunately... Sigh, I gave myself a handle to use against me. A group of friends looked up at the stands on the mountain, then looked at each other and sighed with envy. There is more than one viewing platform on the mountain. To ensure the best viewing experience, huge areas have been carved out of the mountaintop and the mountain walls behind it, offering perfect views of the anime convention venue from these stands. The stands where Akabane was located were the central area prepared for the daimyo and his group. Thank goodness for Mito-san, otherwise organizing a comic convention would be really tiring. Akabane was deeply moved. In just 3 days, Mito Uzumaki has evolved into an interior designer and director, and she is full of enthusiasm. The world of anime is wonderful, it gives a second spring to a listless, otaku woman. He gazed into the distance, then suddenly raised an eyebrow. A ninja dressed in Chunin uniform quickly rushed towards them from the forest. Meanwhile, smoke and dust gradually began to rise from the furthest part of the forest. Akabane stood up, formed hand seals, and instantly a large fireball shot out from his mouth. Okay? Mito Uzumaki sensed the chakra fluctuations and looked up to see a huge fireball lighting up the stands. Magnificent fireball technique. This was the signal she made with Akabane. Releasing the ninjutsu meant that the daimyo was about to arrive. Everyone clean up the site, handle the scene within 1 minute, and make sure it is concealed. At a shout, everyone immediately sprang into action. After 3 days of baptism, these people had become accustomed to Mito Uzumaki's commands. If they were even half a beat slower, they would be met with a barrage of insults. In the blink of an eye, the venue was empty. The next second, Mito Uzumaki appeared beside Akabane. She glanced into the distance, smiled, and said, "Looks like we're almost there. That old fellow, I haven't seen him in over a decade. It's time for me to go." Akabane got up, stretched, and prepared to leave the stands. As the planner of the comic convention ideas, you deserve to be here. That's what Mito Uzumaki said. No, I feel very uncomfortable being with the older generation. Akabane jumped off the stands. With so many stands here, why stay in the most troublesome spot? He turned and entered the viewing platform high in the mountain cliff through the secret passage. Oh! It's His Majesty the Great. Don't crowd, it's dangerous. This section of the stands is mostly occupied by ordinary people, so it's not the best vantage point. However, Akabane didn't care. He just wanted to go to the comic convention, he didn't care about the performances, he was just there for the fun. Your Excellency, it's been many years. I'm so happy to see you're still healthy. Seeing the car approaching, Mito Uzumaki smiled gently. These words would have sounded sincere coming from anyone else, but coming from her. Mito, you are the one who looks as youthful as ever after all these years. Deming answered seemingly casually, but his tone was full of bitterness and jealousy. The 3 generations stood awkwardly to the side, not daring to utter a single word. The clashes between the elderly are truly. Of course, Your Excellency, please take a seat. Mito Uzumaki casually pointed to her seat, showing no sign of politeness whatsoever. Everyone turned a blind eye to this. Daming was helped out of the car not to put on airs, but because he was indeed old enough to need assistance. He glanced at Mito Uzumaki and felt a pang of sadness. They were of the same generation, but they looked like grandfather and granddaughter. Why? Deming sighed and was helped to his seat. After he took his seat, it took only a short while for everyone to find their place. The comic convention is divided into 3 parts. First, the opening ceremony performance, then, a 1-hour free performance and viewing session, and finally, the closing ceremony performance. Mito Uzumaki smiled faintly. I am the host for this session, Mito Uzumaki. Her voice, amplified by chakra, resounded throughout the entire mountain forest. What? Did I hear that right? My God, it's Lady Mito. Great, I didn't expect to see her here. Instantly, the entire stands erupted in cheers. Mito Uzumaki, the only living legend remaining from the legendary era of Konoha. So this is the Senju clan. Akabane sighed slightly, thinking that if Mito Uzumaki wanted to become the 3rd Hokage, it would be a piece of cake. However, the Senju clan has not been involved in politics since the 2nd generation. Now, the show is about to begin. Mito Uzumaki smiled faintly. Instantly, a blinding bolt of lightning flashed across the venue below. Lightning release, ground walking. The striking scene attracted everyone's attention. This marks the beginning. The one who used lightning release was not Tsukumo, but the 3rd Hokage's shadow clone. Then, several figures appeared on the path. Because the surrounding trees have been cut down and repaired, the situation below can be clearly seen from each of the stands. "It's Kakashi, Grandpa, it's Kakashi!" In the stands, a girl immediately exclaimed in surprise. With a dejected look and a mask covering his face, he is almost identical to the character in the comics. Behind them followed Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura, the four of them protecting Tazuna together. "This is?" Daming stood up in surprise, his aged body struggling to support him, his eyes squinting as if he could barely see. "Your Excellency is playing a role," the third generation said softly. "So, it was a ninja in disguise?" The girl immediately understood. As she was speaking, the situation suddenly changed again. The puddle suddenly transformed into two human figures. The next second, the chain was pulled. Boom! Before he could even scream, Kakashi Hatake was torn into countless pieces. The entire audience erupted in screams. This is what a ninja is? Too dangerous. Was that acting too? In the stands, many people exclaimed in surprise. Fortunately, a ninja on the side kindly explained, otherwise there might have been a commotion. So far, the results have been excellent. Akabane looked back at the scene and felt a slight sense of emotion. It was just like a live-action anime, full of memories. Of course. Jiraiya dared not actually use a kunai to poke his own hand. He wasn't a member of the Uzumaki clan after all, and didn't have such abnormal vitality, he was just using a simple trick. The subsequent plot was exactly the same as the original plot. The daimyo and princess in the stands were completely stunned. Although they lived in the world of ninjas, they had never witnessed such a battle before. A bizarre assassination, a massive water-based escape. Page 85. Everything made them tremble with fear, yet incredibly excited. Especially at the end, the scene of two magnificent waterfalls colliding and completely destroying the surrounding forests and rocks is more shocking than any painting or text. Is this the power of a ninja? Deming sat down, feeling both excited and utterly horrified. With such terrifying power, if they really wanted to kill him, could their own army stop them? In contrast, his granddaughter seemed carefree and didn't care about any of this. Her attention was only on the grand scene and Kakashi. Sister Bai has appeared, is it time to end? The girl was a little disappointed, she hadn't seen enough yet. Bai is a man. Daming corrected his granddaughter's words. No, I think she is the older sister. That guy named Akabane is just disgusting. The little princess said firmly. Mito Uzumaki smiled to the side. The fact that she was playing a white character would not be announced for the time being, so that it would be even more shocking later. Well, there will be more performances at the end, this is just the opening ceremony. The third generation coughed lightly and said. Zabuza below is his clone, but in reality, the great waterfall technique released by Kakashi later was also his doing. 2 clones. Such a powerful technique is dangerous. If we keep performing it, the clones might just disappear on their own, which would be disastrous. That's great. It's so beautiful, it's a pity it's too short. If only all comic book storylines could be like this. Chapter 96. Forgive me, Sasuke. The layman looks at the excitement and the insider looks at the doorway. For ordinary people, ninjutsu performances are nothing more than dazzling and exciting. But the Jonin understood how much skill was contained in this short performance. Putting everything else aside, few people could tell that Kakashi had simply switched the items at the last minute, including the Jonin. In addition, after Haku appeared, he used a needle to make Zabuza fake his death. Those in the know understand that Zabuza is a clone of the third Kage. Therefore, the control and methods required to make a shadow clone appear dead without it disappearing are truly baffling. Of all the people, only Mito Uzumaki could do it. Next, everyone can descend the mountain in an orderly manner through the secret passage. There are activities spontaneously organized by comic fans at the foot of the mountain, and those who are interested can freely watch. The ninjas standing in the stands began to maintain order. But in the stands where Akabane was, no one paid any attention to the ninjas. After the show ended, everyone looked at Akabane. Little Akabane, what shows are going to be interesting next? This section of the stands is inhabited by villagers from Konoha. Everyone knows Akabane, and even more so, they know that he is the mastermind behind everything. No one understands anime conventions better than him. The middle part is relatively free, and I don't know the specific program. You can watch it for yourselves. Akabane smiled slightly. Could he say that Mito Uzumaki's 8 clones formed their own stage? Are you kidding me? What about the other customers? He was about to walk directly down the cliff when a member of the ANBU jumped up from below and said to him, Lord Akabane, the daimyo requests your presence. Daimyo? Akabane paused for a moment. He's been hiding here, how could he still be found? Yes, the Hokage asked you to come over. The ANBU immediately added the second half of the sentence to prevent Akabane from suddenly running away, clearly showing that they knew Akabane extremely well. Akabane's expression was strange. He nodded at him and said, You're from Root? You work very hard. I'll remember you. The only members of the entire Umbu who would call him Lord are the ninjas who have been tormented by his genjutsu. Based on the aura, he had already guessed the other party's identity. Thank you, sir. The ANBU ninja was taken aback. It sounds like a compliment, but something feels off. Okay, I'll go first. Akabane bid farewell to everyone, then formed hand seals and used the body flicker technique to accelerate his descent down the mountainside. At this moment, the ANBU ninja realized it seems they've offended this petty person. Akabane's physical skills aren't particularly strong right now, but if he travels at full speed, it won't take him long to reach the daimyo stands. However, he deliberately took a detour. A famous name? Are there any good shows to watch? Just as I arrived at the foot of the mountain, a figure sat upright. He wore a long robe with fiery red clouds on it, and his pair of bright red eyes were incredibly striking. Uchiha Itachi. A figure in the poster instantly grabs the attention of all passers-by. Before long, a figure arrived. I am going to kill you. Uchiha Sasuke. In reality, it was Uchiha Rin. After a brief battle, Sasuke was unable to move, while Itachi appeared injured and walked towards him step by step. Forgive me, Sasuke, this is the last time. The lines are incredibly familiar, but the voices are completely different from those in the anime. Apart from that, almost everything else was done perfectly. A memorable scene. Itachi, is he Sasuke's older brother? So handsome. The crowd paused and gasped in amazement, while little girls screamed wildly. Although the plot hasn't been depicted yet, the audience can feel the emotional entanglement between the two brothers just from the acting. Of course. The important thing is that handsome face. As Uchiha Ryo listened to those people's voices, he suddenly felt constipated. He enjoyed the screams, but unfortunately, the sounds weren't directed at him, but at the older brother in front of him. More importantly, the older brother was actually Orochimaru in disguise. Orochimaru is enjoying himself, huh? What a twisted sense of humor. Akabane shook his head inside. But he doesn't even consider who orchestrated this situation? Itachi glanced at him. Akabane stared at him for a moment, then silently looked away and headed up the mountain. I hope Daming and the others have come down the mountain, so I can slack off a little longer. Akabane secretly looked forward to it. When those people sit together and chat, what they say may not be what they literally mean. For example, Mito Uzumaki. Is her hosting of anime conventions and participation in so many events really just for her hobby? Akabane guessed that it also meant to show off to the daimyo. Rather than calling it a comic convention or a chance to mend relationships, it's more like giving everyone another platform to discuss the issues of the Uzumaki clan. He understood this perfectly. However, after walking for a while, he gradually heard voices talking above. In terms of content, it's pretty much the same as what Akabane guessed. The daimyo explained his predicament to Mito Uzumaki and stated the position of the Land of Fire. Then the third Hokage stepped in and evaded the issue. In short, the two sides bargained, and the third Hokage mediated between them. Now that you're here, go up. What are you dawdling for? Akabane was still hesitant when a voice suddenly came from the side. He was startled and reflexively jumped back, forming a hand seal before realizing it was Danzo. "Teacher, what are you doing here?" "Protect Daimyo." Danzo said something indifferently, then glanced at him, formed hand seals, and left. Eavesdropping is one thing, but protecting someone else is another. Akabane silently complained, composed himself, and headed towards the stands. No matter what, he'll just go for it. He's just a lowly pawn from the Kurama clan, he probably won't get a chance to argue. "Stop. Who are you?" Just as they reached the entrance, two burly guards stopped them. "I am Kurama Akabane. I came when His Majesty the Daimyo summoned me," Akabane said in a very obsequious manner. The two turned to look, and only sheathed their weapons when the daimyo waved his hand. At this moment, Tsunade had arrived in the stands and was sitting next to a girl, chatting casually. Upon hearing that Akabane had arrived, the two of them turned around at the same time. "Akabane, you're the planner here. You and Tsunade will take the princess around to explore and have some fun," the third generation said. "Just treat them like family. If you need anything, just ask and don't hesitate to ask." Mito Uzumaki smiled gently. "They? Relatives?" Page 86. Akabane muttered to himself, "That old otaku girl has dug another hole." The girl was pleasantly surprised, but then hesitated and looked at the name, Grandpa. "Go ahead, with their protection, no one will dare to cause you trouble." Deming smiled as he said this, appearing cheerful and kind. "Thank you, Grandpa." The girl jumped up happily and immediately tried to rush outside. It's clear that she also disliked this atmosphere. "Let's go." Tsunade smiled sweetly, appearing gentle and charming. The smile, inherited from a certain lineage, appears gentle and tender, but there's probably something else on her mind. Two women make a drama, and that applies equally well to them. I reckon this is going to be another big problem. Akabane secretly groaned, but this time there was no one to shift the blame to, so he had to bite the bullet and take the blame himself. Chapter 97. Is it easy to draw a picture? The girl left the stands cheerfully, without a trace of worry. Akabane and Tsunade, who were behind them, exchanged a glance and then sighed almost imperceptibly. "Oh, right, I haven't asked yet, what's your name?" "TCH, why should I tell you?" Once he left the stands, his image underwent a dramatic transformation. If she was once a well-behaved and adorable princess, now she's like a mischievous devil, arrogant and domineering. She excitedly leaned closer and asked, "Are you Brother Chiyu?" "Well..." Akabane didn't know how to answer. Because at this moment, Tsunade was trying her best to suppress her anger. "I always thought that painters and authors were either old men or bald men, because I felt they had a lot of things to think about every day. I never expected them to be so handsome." The girl skipped along, chattering away. At this time, boom! With a loud bang, the girl, Akabane, and many guards in the stands were all stunned. All that could be seen was Tsunade clenching her fist, the large tree beside her having been smashed in two by her fist, and countless tree debris scattered around. The girl trembled instantly, her eyelids twitching uncontrollably. "It's nothing." A bug suddenly flew by, and I was so scared that I punched it to death. Tsunade looked up and said with a smile. No, it's nothing." The girl stuttered a little. She was terrified. How could such a slender and delicate body unleash such terrifying power? "By the way, what's your name?" Tsunade's smile remained unchanged, and instead became even more gentle. "Erika, you can just call me Erika." Upon seeing that smile, she shrank back even further. "So horrible. Grandpa, I want to go home." It seems they get along well. Mito covered her mouth and smiled, no longer paying attention to the farce below. No matter what, Tsunade definitely won't lose out. The power of the Senju clan is still terrifying. Deming sighed softly. He had certainly witnessed the strength of the Senju clan, but he never expected that Tsunade would be so outstanding after the deaths of Hashirama and Tobarama. And then there are those ninjas. The ninja tradition has nothing to do with bloodline. The three generations seem to have a specific meaning. In fact, the daimyo's idea was very simple. He believed that Konoha was strong because of the Senju and Uchiha clans, but little did he know that even ordinary ninjas in Konoha now possessed considerable strength. The third generation summoned him for two reasons: 1, to exchange ideas and negotiate, and 2, to demonstrate their strength. Yes, they are gone, but the will of fire has been passed down. Daiming sighed with mixed feelings. Konoha belongs to the land of fire. Only when Konoha is strong will foreign countries not dare to covet it. That's what Mito Uzumaki said. The three started arguing, while on the road leading down the mountain, Erika waited a long time, but the daimyo didn't try to stop her, and she felt utterly hopeless. With such a commotion, she didn't believe she hadn't heard of his name. "Let's go, Erika, I'll show you around, this place is so much fun," Tsunade said with a smile. "Okay, let's go." Upon hearing this, Erika lifted her leg and stepped forward, not daring to linger for even a moment. Throughout the entire process, Akabane remained an observer. Obviously, this girl knows Tsunade's identity and is deliberately provoking her. However, there's a saying that one force can overcome 10 techniques. No matter how cunning she is, she can only obediently submit to Tsunade's violence. Compared to that, Tsunade's performance surprised him even more. Although her method was simple and crude, her result was successful. Neither the third generation nor the daimyo interfered. This was a deliberate plan by Tsunade, not a rash or angry outburst. That's probably her combat wisdom, Akabane thought to himself. However, what he was more looking forward to was how Tsunade would deal with this scheming princess next. After descending the mountain, looking at the route, Akabane felt that Erika might have to spend money to avoid disaster today. As expected, next stop, Crimson Sunset. Kurenai Yui's stuff is fan art. He doesn't have Jiraiya's slick mind, he just randomly picked a spot and started drawing. If it weren't for Tsunade bringing him, most people probably wouldn't come to him. "Hey, someone's actually painting here." Erika was surprised. "See? I'll make sure you have fun." Tsunade smiled brightly. Kurenai Yuhi was focused on her drawing when she finished one. She looked up and her face showed a hint of surprise. He didn't recognize the woman next to Tsunade and Akabane, but he could guess from her clothes and attire that she was a princess. "Shinko, this is Princess Erika. She wants to buy your paintings. Just pick a few of your best ones," Tsunade said. "Huh? I'm sending this." Yuhi Shinku was taken aback, he hadn't planned to profit from this. No, the money must be paid, it must be paid." Erika twitched her lips, then took out some money from her pocket and handed over a random bill. I don't have any money on me, so I can't give you change," Itsuki Makoto said with shame. "It's alright, just take this money," Erika said softly. Who told her to have so many large bills in her pockets? This shows that maintaining appearances requires considerable expense. However, upon seeing the fan art of Shinobu Yuhi, she was immediately overjoyed. "I thought Tsunade would kill her, but the quality of the artwork was surprisingly good, almost as good as the original. Shinko's skill level is second to none among the people I've seen, his drawing skills are not too bad." Akabane smiled. "Second? Brother Akabane, who is number 1? Both Yuhi Shinku and Erika asked curiously at the same time. It's Granny Mito," Akabane said. Mito Uzumaki's talent can only be described as terrifying. Their drawing, design, and even planning guidance all reached a very high level within just a few days. "What?" Kurenai Yuhi was stunned, while Erika became even more curious. But the thought of Mito Uzumaki above her made her sigh with regret. "Let's go, I'll take you to the next place. There are a lot of exciting and interesting performances at this comic convention." Tsunade smiled and said she would take her to the next place. Akabane glanced in the direction. The next place after this location seemed to be Jiraiya. "Women are terrifying when they try to scam both of you." "I see it, there looks like another painter up ahead." "Yes, this guy's name is Jiraiya." Tsunade said calmly. Jiraiya, huh? He sounds like a really strong person. Erika looked on with anticipation. Konoha was indeed full of hidden talents. Besides Akabane, there were so many other painting masters. Tsunade chuckled to herself, then said seriously, "Go take a look and buy whatever you like." Page 87. Good. Erika was somewhat pleased, as this time she was finally spared the pressure of forced sales and at least the consumers' wishes were respected. She approached the crowd and found that most of the people around her were men. However, she didn't think too much about it and squeezed in quickly. It's not good? What's wrong with that? There aren't many good people in Daming Prefecture. Tsunade curled her lip, showing no sympathy whatsoever. No, I mean Jiraiya. Do you think it's easy for him to draw a picture? Akabane sighed. He had already imagined that Jiraiya's painting would probably be completely destroyed in a moment. Really? Ah, what are you doing? Put it down, no, my painting. Who told you to draw this nonsense? I'll pay you back, but you're not allowed to draw anymore. After Erika finished speaking, she stormed out of the crowd in a huff. It's you again, you stinky flat-chested airport. Do you think it's easy for me to draw a picture? It has nothing to do with me, don't falsely accuse me. Tsunade waved her hand. Jiraiya looked at Erika and immediately cowered. Judging from her clothes, this person is a princess. Go away, don't get in my way. Jiraiya waved his hand, clearly not wanting to see them at all. Looking at the scraps of paper scattered on the ground, Akabane felt genuinely sorry for him. The path of art is indeed full of hardships and obstacles. In the end, all I can say is, come on. Akabane sighed softly. Jiraiya hadn't thought much of it at first, but after hearing good luck, he almost burst into tears. Come on. Tsunade patted him on the shoulder, then tossed her hair, signaling Erika to follow. Jiraiya was so angry he wanted to grind his teeth. This guy is now like the owner of a vicious dog that's biting everyone, yet he doesn't dare say a word. Chapter 98. Do devil fruits exist? Ah. Itachi is so handsome, I love him. Kakashi is so handsome. Despite being tricked twice, Erika wasn't discouraged at all. On the contrary, she was thrilled to see Itachi and Kakashi. The three of them came out from where Tsukumo was. Tsunade was silent for a moment, then whispered to Akabane, I admit Itachi is handsome, but Kakashi only has one eye outside. How can she see that he's handsome? Of course, Kakashi must look really cool under his mask. Erika retorted loudly. Who knows, maybe it's buck teeth, or sausage lips. How can it be? Erika was furious and suddenly turned around angrily. However, why are you so fierce? Tsunade raised her fist, her eyes wide open. I just meant that Kakashi won't look like that. Erika shrank back and said. That's what Akabane said himself, isn't it? Seeing Tsunade's expression, Akabane was a little confused. The fire inexplicably ended up on him, but thinking about it carefully, he really did say those words. When Kakashi first appeared, many of his classmates were fans of him, and Akabane made these remarks with a wicked sense of humor. Brother Akabane, really? Erika was in despair. What she imagined was sausage lips and buck teeth hidden under the mask. Do not mind the details. Akabane didn't explain, because he didn't particularly like this self-important princess either. In an instant, the dream shattered. If you go along this road, the exhibition site set up by Mito Uzumaki will be right ahead. Although she was still in the stands, she couldn't help having a clone. Following those two women who set off firecrackers was just asking for trouble. Akabane was determined to find an opportunity to escape using Shadow Clone Jutsu and Earth Release. If we stay any longer, we'll be stuck in the middle and probably doomed. That's my grandma's stall up there. Please show her respect when you go over there, okay? Tsunade turned to scold Erika. Akabane was already behind, so he took advantage of the time to form hand seals and create shadow clones, which simultaneously burrowed into the ground using Earth Release. I know, Grandma Mito is a legendary figure. Erika replied irritably. Akabane, keep up. You're so slow. Tsunade didn't forget to pull Akabane along. Okay, come right away. Red Feather answered calmly, then quickened his pace and soon caught up with them. In a bush a dozen steps away, Akabane cautiously poked his head out of the ground. The clone didn't disappear, so it was a success. Several minutes after Tsunade and the princess left the sensing range, he crawled out of the room looking disheveled. Go check on Yunlang, then find a place to hide. Akabane already had a plan in mind. The places those two women pass by are definitely dangerous places where you shouldn't linger. A few minutes later, he crossed the mountains and forests. As soon as he turned the corner, he saw Anma Yunlong's stall. There were many people there, and quite a few people were gathered around the stall watching. Young master, you finally. Shoo! Akabane gestured from afar, telling Kurama Unro not to make a fuss. Anma Yunlang didn't know what was going on, but he still did as he was told and obediently kept his voice down. Akabane approached the crowd. He had secretly used a transformation spell to change his appearance, turning into an inconspicuous child. What kind of comic is this? Akabane casually picked up a copy of One Piece and deliberately asked a question. The new manga seems to be called One Piece. Someone answered. Does it look good? Akabane asked. Hard to say, the art style is a bit strange. Once you get used to it, it's actually not bad, and this kind of power called Devil Fruit feels very peculiar. When it's updated, I can still buy it and take a look. Once the rhythm was set, everyone immediately started a heated discussion. Akabane sat quietly listening. One Piece is doing quite well in the market, and most people can accept it. However, Naruto is clearly more popular among Konoha readers. This is a geographical advantage, and it's hard to change. Speaking of which, Mr. Yunlang, are these for sale? Some people got so excited talking about it that they wanted to buy a copy right away to keep as a keepsake. These 50 books are not for sale. Kurama Yunlang smiled faintly. What a pity. Everyone sighed. 100 taels isn't expensive, but these 50 books are the first batch and are definitely worth collecting. Boss, what's the rank of colonel? I don't know that either. Kurama Unro glanced awkwardly at Akabane, and finding that the young master had no desire to explain, he could only give a helpless reply. What a pity, why isn't Akabane here today? Many people sighed. It feels really nice to sit together, read comics, and chat about the plot. It's a pity the author isn't here. Akabane fell into deep thought. He had indeed overlooked this aspect. After all, for him, the title of colonel was common sense and seemed to require no explanation. However, this is the Naruto world. Looks like I'll have to add a few more pages of settings later. Luckily, I didn't let Yamano Izumi print too much. He sat there and continued to listen. Many of the issues raised by these people were quite enlightening for him and were very helpful for the subsequent formal publication. No wonder those games all need to have a beta version first. Just then, a figure walked in from outside, found a seat, and picked up a comic book. Orochimaru? Although he was disguised, for some reason, Akabane instinctively felt that he was Orochimaru. Page 88. At the same time, Orochimaru also looked over. The two exchanged a glance, each understanding the other's meaning. One Piece, is it a manga that depicts the sea? After opening the book, his eyes quickly scanned the picture, but he turned to the next page in a moment. Akabane stood to the side, secretly observing his actions. Page after page. After turning several pages, Orochimaru finally stopped. He thought for a moment and asked, do devil fruits really exist? Instantly, the entire room fell silent. Look over here, everyone. Several people who were talking earlier opened their mouths, but then didn't say anything. After a few seconds, someone finally couldn't help but burst out laughing. How could that be? It's just a comic book. Kid, aren't you overthinking it? Exactly, if such a thing really existed, it would be too absurd. Everyone shook their heads. However, from beginning to end, Orochimaru didn't care about their answers. His eyes were fixed on Akabane, filled with a thirst for the unknown. How could there be devil fruits? If such a thing existed, it would be too outrageous. Akabane shook his head and said. Of course, he knew very well that devil fruits did exist. If he redeemed one from the system and then casually threw it away, there would naturally be a devil fruit in the world. But points don't just fall from the sky, and he's not that rich. Pity. Orochimaru sighed, his interest in the manga seemingly diminishing several times over in an instant. Although I'm still flipping through the pages, the speed is clearly much faster now. But as he flipped through the pages, he suddenly flipped back Rubber Man? A body that can stretch and soften, that's quite interesting. Orochimaru pondered for a moment, then his eyes lit up. While stretching and contracting are difficult for the human body to achieve, developing the quality of softness and suppleness is not difficult. Well, you can try. He wrote it down and became interested in the comic book again. Chapter 99, the most outstanding story. Swordsmanship. In a world like this, where devil fruits exist, there are actually people who practice swordsmanship. Orochimaru was somewhat surprised when he saw the 5th episode. Any questions? Some people think this child is strange, everyone else reads comics, but he's the one who talks the most. Orochimaru shook his head and remained silent. This is equivalent to practicing pure swordsmanship in a ninja world, foolish and laughable. Sword skills are not necessarily weak, there are also strong individuals in the Iron Country. Akabane said. Well, you're right. Orochimaru nodded in agreement, but that didn't stop him from looking down on those samurai. However, not eating devil fruits in the world of One Piece does not mean one is weak. Akabane smiled slightly, offering no further explanation. These details relate to the later plot, so I'll keep you in suspense for now. After Orochimaru finished reading, he politely closed the comic book and put it back on the shelf. He glanced at Akabane, thought for a moment, and then said, on the way here, I saw Tsunade, the princess, and Akabane. Oh, so Akabane was with the princess. No wonder I didn't see her. They might come over later, I'll definitely ask them carefully. Am I the only one who wants to see the princess? Everyone immediately became excited, both Akabane and the princess were exciting news for them. But Orochimaru's words were clearly aimed at Akabane, he wanted to be alone with Akabane. I'm off to other places, everyone. Have a great time. Orochimaru stood up, bowed slightly, and then turned and left. Akabane stood up and followed Orochimaru. After walking a few steps, he saw Orochimaru standing under a big tree by the roadside. Akabane-kun, it seems you're not happy either. You actually used a shadow clone to deceive Tsunade and ran off to play. Orochimaru said gleefully. Akabane rolled his eyes and couldn't help but complain, when two women are fighting, I have to be dragged into it. It's so painful. Women are all troublesome creatures, but seeing you unhappy makes me happy. Orochimaru chuckled softly. Looks like you've had your fill of toying with Uchiha Rin. Are you going to let him go this time? No, I created a shadow clone. Orochimaru, under the influence of his transformation technique, walked forward slowly and rhythmically. Both of them are in a state that can't be seen in public, but they still have a lot to talk about. He took a few steps, and then said with great emotion, I once wanted to learn from Akabane-kun and write my own story. But then I discovered that studying the mysteries of ninjutsu and the mysteries of life are themselves the most outstanding stories. Okay? Akabane didn't quite catch on. How did this guy suddenly become so artsy while he was talking? He followed for a few steps, then said seriously, speak like a human being. Orochimaru paused for a moment, then chuckled, I've gained a lot of inspiration from your story, so manga isn't entirely without merit. What do you mean? Akabane paused for a moment, not quite understanding what Orochimaru was trying to say, but he felt that the other party must have a purpose. It's nothing, I just wanted to find someone to chat with. Orochimaru remained silent for a moment before speaking. Where has your deal with him progressed? Akabane frowned slightly. Orochimaru's change of heart is happening rather quickly. I'm ready to join them. He said casually, joining them will give you more opportunities to go out. The study of ninjutsu requires extensive experimental and theoretical support. He lacked the terrifying theoretical knowledge and talent of the second generation, and therefore could only choose to conduct more experiments. Be careful, he's not so easy to deal with. It's best to wait until you have enough strength before you do anything. After pondering for a moment, Akabane said. Danzo's methods are insidious and ruthless. He will gradually push people into the abyss through his schemes. He's a venomous snake, but I'm Orochimaru. Orochimaru was extremely confident. Living with venomous snakes always means there will be times when you get bitten back, but he was born to live with snakes. Ah. Akabane nodded without saying anything more. Although there are no outsiders in your perception, you still need to be wary of Danzo and the Anbu, and say as little as possible about these things. He walked a few steps and came to a rather secluded path. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept up, and a figure appeared in the middle of the road. Danzo. He glanced at Orochimaru, then at Akabane, and paused for a moment before saying, "You two being together saves me a lot of time." Teacher. Akabane did not revert to his original form, but merely bowed slightly. War may be about to break out in the land of whirlpools. Danzo said calmly. Guessed. Orochimaru licked his lips. What comic convention? It's just pre-battle briefings and negotiations. For him, this was an opportunity. Where's the time? Akabane pondered for a moment before asking. They hold the initiative, and we can only react passively. However, the approximate time frame is after the Chunin exams. Danzo said calmly. It has nothing to do with me. Akabane didn't respond. He didn't want to set off with Danzo, so it was better not to go at all. It looks like it's going to be another war. Orochimaru said. War is inevitable. If Konoha wants peace, it must take swift and decisive action against others. Danzo said indifferently. He looked at Akabane and Orochimaru, then said, this time, it will most likely be the Anbu and Ruth that go into battle. I hope you can help me. No one can predict the future, so I can't agree immediately. Orochimaru remained non-committal. Teacher, if you need help with training, I will do my best. Akabane said cowardly. He didn't want to participate in the war, at least not with Danzo. As for Orochimaru, he showed no surprise or other emotion, but his subtle movements revealed that he was not calm at the moment. Page 89. Ah. Danzo nodded, looked around, and said, it's good that you all know what's going on. I'll be going now. Goodbye, teacher. Akabane bowed slightly, and when he looked up again, Danzo had already left. He narrowed his eyes, pondering to himself, has Danzo discovered their collaboration? Both of them were pondering this question. They remained silent, each taking a few steps, and finally breathed a sigh of relief. Judging from Danzo's behavior, he probably didn't discover it, but the fact that the two knew each other's identities was probably within Danzo's expectations. After all, he was the one who created this situation. Akabane-kun, I'll be going now if there's nothing else. I still have a lot to do. Orochimaru said calmly, anyway, I won't be needed for the closing ceremony. All right. Akabane stretched and yawned, then said with a headache, if I didn't have to stay here, I'd like to slip away too. Ah. Orochimaru nodded slightly, then followed the path toward the village. Akabane glanced at the time and did a quick calculation. Tsunade and the others should be finishing their rounds soon, and the closing ceremony is almost here. I need to find some time to switch back to my clone. He thought to himself. If Tsunade finds out that he left his shadow clone to fool her, he'll definitely be in big trouble. Chapter 100 is so exciting, so exciting. A few minutes later, Akabane had just switched places and returned to the three-person group. The timing is perfect. Tsunade said calmly. What? Erika was bewildered and didn't know what was going on. Akabane scratched his head, pretending not to understand anything. What are you talking about? Ah. Tsunade sneered and ignored her. Akabane touched his nose, trying to hide his nervousness. The shadow clone was recognized? Based on the shared memories, there shouldn't be any mistakes. After thinking it over, he came to only one possibility: Nito Uzumaki had sold him out again. Hey, let's go, the closing ceremony is about to start. Akabane tried to appear calm. He. Tsunade gave a mocking sneer, then turned and headed towards the stands. Where do we go next? Erika understood some of it, but she didn't want to get involved in the affairs of the ninjas. She just wanted to know what other fun places there were to visit next. Go where? It's time to go back. Tsunade said irritably. You're going back now? Erika's eyes darted around, wanting to sneak away. She wasn't done playing yet. However, Erika turned her head and immediately saw Tsunade, whom she feared most, and let out a scream. If this guy runs away, the whole venue will probably be in chaos. How dare you use violence against me? I am the princess of the land of fire. Erika was furious. Who isn't a princess at heart? Don't be ridiculous. Tsunade waved her hand to stop her from making a fuss, then grabbed her and pulled her toward the stands. After so much time, the wrangling at the top should have ended long ago. Good job. Akabane secretly gave a thumbs up. Having endured the agonizing wait until the very end, he couldn't let her leave. Actually, he was already prepared to use illusion magic. If this girl tried to run away, he would use illusion magic to hypnotize her back. After all, hypnosis and hallucination are no problem at all when dealing with ordinary people. Thinking about it this way, it's a good thing Jiraiya doesn't have that ability either. Akabane secretly said. This isn't the way to the stands. Erika followed for a while, and found that the path was getting narrower and narrower. This is a shortcut. Tsunade said calmly. After turning a corner, Erika finally saw the viewing platform from before, but in front of her was a cliff several meters high. How do I get there? She was a little confused and froze. This is the fastest route, it's not difficult to get up there. Tsunade smiled brightly, then grabbed her and rushed toward the cliff. She has strong chakra control and walks very steadily, so carrying someone is no problem at all, but this experience is too terrifying for Erika, who is an ordinary person. She screamed all the way from the bottom of the cliff, still shaken when she reached the stands. Akabane and the others behind her felt a little sorry for her. They wanted to use a genjutsu to ease her pain, but Tsunade was too fast, and a distant solution couldn't solve the immediate problem. What happened? Princess, how are you? The guards rushed over immediately, all of them extremely anxious. Erika stood up, her legs trembling, while Tsunade said with a relaxed expression, "It's all right, I took her up the mountain and took a shortcut." Tsunade, what's wrong with you? Nito Uzumaki was about to reprimand her when she noticed that Erika's expression was not quite right. That expression doesn't look like anger. This is so exciting, so exciting. Erika said excitedly, Tsunade-nichan, can you take me here again? What? Tsunade was completely stunned, utterly unable to comprehend what was happening before her eyes. This was hard for her to understand, but Akabane knew exactly what was going on. Even though people are afraid of roller coasters, many people still enjoy riding them. Please take me one more time, sis, please. Erika tugged at Tsunade, constantly acting cute. Tsunade was completely bewildered. Ahem, Tsunade, you, take her on this trip. Deming said awkwardly. He really didn't understand the young people's thinking, but what could he do when his granddaughter was acting so spoiled? This, okay. Tsunade then jumped off the stands with Erika in tow. Yes, skip directly. Halfway there, she suddenly pushed off the mountain wall and sprinted up it. Ah! The distorted sound perfectly conveyed the fear of the person making the sound. Even more terrifying is that as soon as Tsunade landed, she immediately pushed off with her feet and ran upwards again. This feeling is so refreshing. Back in the stands, Erika's legs were so weak she could barely stand. So exciting. She was incredibly excited and looked longingly at Tsunade. Tsunade was completely stunned. Sis, what's wrong with you? Normally, she should have been terrified, so how did she end up liking him? Sister, you. Erika, come back. Seeing that she wanted to come again, Daming couldn't stand it anymore and reprimanded her. If we do it again, this girl will probably collapse on the ground in fright. She is a princess, and if that happens, the entire Daming prefecture will lose face. Well, if there's nothing else, the closing ceremony should be over by now, right? The third generation smoothed things over and changed the subject. Yes, third generation Sama. Akabane answered. He was the one who hosted and prepared the closing ceremony, otherwise, he wouldn't have brought it along on this trip. Let's begin then. Your Excellency's journey is long, so it's better to finish sooner so that you can be safely escorted back. Mito Uzumaki said calmly. The Land of Fire isn't in such a state of chaos yet, but it's better to end it sooner rather than later. Daimyo retorted sharply, then nodded to Akabane to begin the final program of the anime convention. Akabane bowed slightly, formed hand seals, and instantly disappeared. Then, the comic convention is coming to an end, and the closing ceremony is about to begin. The closing ceremony will consist of 3 parts: role-playing, singing, and virtual games. Everyone, hurry to the stands. Leaving the stands may prevent you from fully experiencing the closing ceremony. Akabane's voice, amplified by chakra, echoed throughout the mountains and forests. Everyone started walking towards the stands. Page 90. If you haven't watched these shows, you might not care, and some people might just leave, like Orochimaru. Now very few people are leaving, and the situation in each stand is basically the same as before. Erika had just finished her roller coaster ride when another show started. She quickly drank some water to regain her energy so she wouldn't be too tired to watch the show later. A few minutes later, everyone saw figures appearing on the mountain path. Zabuza, Haku, Kakashi, Sasuke, Naruto. The difference is that Zabuza is currently entangled by 8 dogs and cannot move at all, while Haku has knocked Sasuke to the ground, leaving only Naruto to confront her. Zabuza, you've gone too far. You're too ambitious. After rambling on for a while, Kakashi formed hand seals, which were too difficult for anyone at a distance to see clearly, but then... Zazizi! A piercing scream echoed from the bottom of the mountain to all parts of the stands. Oh my god, this is... Lightning Blade really exists. Incredible, I've never heard of that before. Not only ordinary people, but even the ninjas were stunned. The ninjutsu they had imagined actually appeared before them, and the blinding lightning brought tears to the eyes of those who watched it directly. I'll say it again, your future is only death. An extremely fast attack was launched at Zabuza, who was trapped. But the next moment, a figure suddenly appeared and stood in front of Zabuza. Instantly, blood splattered. Zabuza froze, staring at Haku in front of him, momentarily forgetting to retaliate. Then, he lowered his head and laughed arrogantly and sinisterly, my future is only death? He. Kakashi, you're wrong again. Chapter 101 Farewell, White. Lord Mito is dead? Acting according to the script, that's definitely right. Zabuza is too stubborn. Everyone has read the manga and knows that Zabuza may seem heartless, but he's just being stubborn. His feelings for Bai were very deep. This kind of emotion is even more impactful and astonishing when portrayed in a live-action performance. That's amazing. I never imagined that ninjas could do something like that. Daming is old and frail, and needs to rest every few seconds. However, judging from his expression, he was undoubtedly very satisfied with the comic convention. While he sat down to rest, Kakashi had already crippled Zabuza's hands. Zabuza, unable to form hand seals, was beyond saving no amount of chakra. At this moment, Gato, the richest man in the land of waves, arrives. 1 card, a bunch of extras. They blocked Zabuza's retreat and pressed forward step by step. Without his arms, Zabuza's fighting power was greatly reduced, and he no longer terrified them. Speaking of which, I have a grudge against this kid. He's already dead. Kato stepped on the white head. Moment. Damn it, what is this guy going to do to Lady Nito? He can't be let off the hook. Who played Kato? We must find out. Everyone in the stands cursed and glared indignantly at Cardo. Akabane had seen this phenomenon many times before. Many good actors in the past brought the villains to life, only to be blown up in real life. This wave is the same. Zi Xiao was playing the role of Kato. He had excellent hearing and could vaguely hear the recent discussions in the stands. He immediately felt a chill run down his spine. However, he had no choice but to grit his teeth and continue reciting his lines. Then came Zabuza's tool theory, and the plot proceeded methodically according to the manga. It was everyone's first time acting, but they all did a pretty good job. Finally, Zabuza shed tears. He bit down on a kunai and charged into the crowd. Swords pierced his body, but he showed no reaction, continuing to charge forward fiercely. Kato and his men were stunned. The spectators in the stands were also shocked. Reading the manga and witnessing it firsthand are completely different experiences. I originally felt anger and disgust towards Zabuza. At this moment, everything is gone. Kill, keep killing. Finally, snowflakes drifted down. Everyone seemed to see Haku appear before Zabuza, pure as snow, and breathtakingly beautiful. Please let me stay by your side forever. A sweet voice rang out. Zabuza stumbled along, making his way towards the image. To say, goodbye, bye. I'm truly sorry for everything you've done for me. His limp body lay sprawled on top of Bai's corpse. At that moment, the song began. Flying. The Blue Bird. The program below hadn't ended yet, but the singing had already begun. Above Zabuza and Haku's corpses, their illusory figures exchanged a smile, then transformed into two birds and soared into the sky. Everything was as beautiful as a song. No one spoke, not even Princess Erika, who was stunned and in tears. Even Tsunade felt a sudden pang of sorrow in her heart. Are ninjas just tools? Perhaps so, but at this moment, Zabuza and Haku are both bluebirds, and they are both free. The storyline is outside the comics, but no one finds it abrupt. On the contrary, the two bluebirds flying away together are even more touching. At the same time, Mito Uzumaki appeared in midair. She was like a nightingale, singing a melodious and beautiful song. At her feet, a rope was tied to a large tree and the distant mountain wall. So beautiful. The third generation knew that Akabane's hypnosis and illusion techniques were involved, but he still couldn't help but be moved by the beautiful and touching scene. A few minutes later, the song ended as the figure slowly ascended into the sky. However, after a long while, the mountains and forests remained silent. Aside from the chirping of birds and insects, there was only the sound of soft sobbing. That Akabane guy. I'll definitely have to teach him a lesson when we get back. The changes are fantastic. Grandma, are those two birds Zabuza and Haku? They're still alive, right? After a long while, people began to speak. Everyone was affected by the plot, and their emotions were very sad and depressed. Grandpa, Zabuza and Haku were so touching. Erika cried her eyes out. Having grown up in Daiming Prefecture since birth, she knew very little about the outside world and was simply unable to resist such a tear-jerking storyline. It is indeed a touching story. Daiming sighed slightly, but that was all. As a daimyo, he had seen far more cruel realities than this. It was just that this particular storyline, through Akabane's various embellishments and arrangements, became even more poignant. Even Tsunade was still immersed in the scene she had just witnessed, unable to pull herself away for a long time. But then, she was even angrier and wanted nothing more than to give Akabane a good beating. Such beautiful white, and he ruined it with his drawing. Many people who knew Akabane shared the same thought as her, but unfortunately it was still a comic convention and no one could make a move against him. A few minutes later, Akabane's voice rang out again. The first two programs are over. Next is the last one. Everyone, please, be mentally prepared. The third item is Unreal Games. Of course. Ultimately, it's just an illusion without any enhancement of the five senses. Prepare? What is that? I think I mentioned before that Unreal Engine games aren't anything special. What? Many people are still immersed in grief, and now they're being told that the next show is about to begin. There wasn't even time to savor it. But what exactly is the next show? People felt both sorrow and anticipation. This episode was absolutely fantastic. The performances alone made it worth the trip, not to mention the grand finale. Next second. Unreal game, begin. Before Akabane lay a magnificent and exquisite painting. The moment the illusion was released, everyone was pulled into a vast illusion. Page 91. Pulling all the people in the stands into the illusion, even though most of them were ordinary people and did not resist, still required a tremendous amount of mental strength. If Akabane's mental strength had not reached over 80, he would not have been able to sustain it at all. The moment the illusion opened, everyone saw the scene before them change. The stands and the mountains have disappeared. Grandpa, where is this? Konoha village. I am calm, Diaming said. He looked at Erika, who was dressed in ninja clothes and equipment. Look at yourself again. The Hokage's robe and cloak. Grandpa, how did you become Hokage? Erika was shocked and surprised. It should be a fantasy world, a kind of role-playing game. The daimyo calmly stated, the role I play is that of a ninja. Erika looked around and saw many bewildered ninjas nearby. Like them, these ninjas were people who were pulled into the illusion. Welcome to Unreal Engine. The first wave of enemies will arrive on the battlefield in 3 minutes. Everyone, please purchase equipment quickly and prepare for battle. The first wave of enemies? Equipment? What is this? Everyone was confused and had no idea what was going on. Newbies, don't just stand there. Come and buy ninjutsu and equipment, or what will you use to fight back when the enemy ninjas arrive? At that moment, a cold voice rang out. Everyone look over there. This guy looks a bit like that brat who draws delinquent comics. Erika was surprised. Unlike that kid, this guy was older, standing on a toad and holding a book called Intimate Paradise. Will I buy ninjutsu and equipment from you? After pondering for a moment, the Lord asked. Yes, everyone's mission is to protect Konoha and the Hokage. If either the Hokage building or the Hokage himself is destroyed, the game will end immediately. The large Jiraiya said coldly. The famous man walked over. Jiraiya opened the Ika Paradise book and displayed the ninjutsu recorded on it. Is it really possible to redeem it? He looked at them and finally exchanged them for a ninjutsu called Earth Release, Wall. He mastered it instantly, along with the process of using ninjutsu. Try it. Jiraiya said calmly. Daimyo nodded and shouted, Earthflow Wall. Then, his hands automatically formed a madra. A massive earthen wall surrounded him. This was a defensive ninjutsu Earthflow Wall. He has truly mastered ninjutsu. Erika was overjoyed. Learning ninjutsu simply by exchanging currency is incredibly convenient. The others also instantly became excited. For these ordinary people, experiencing the taste of ninjutsu was an immense joy. What a brilliant idea! The daimyo released his ninjutsu and looked at his hands, muttering to himself. He couldn't understand what kind of ability ninjutsu was before, but after experiencing it firsthand, he realized just how powerful it was. Chapter 102. Wow, well done. Damn it, we weren't even included in the illusion game. When Tsunade saw the daimyo and the others fall into a deep sleep, she immediately understood what the so-called virtual game was all about. So many people would drain a lot of his chakra, plus the ninjas. Do you want him dead? The third Hokage and Mito Uzumaki glared at her, and Tsunade immediately shrank back, not daring to say a word. To be honest, she was simply curious about what was inside the illusion. Akaba, where's your virtual game? Jiraiya cancels the transformation technique. He thought he could get in too, but so far, nothing has happened. Fool, this kind of illusion technique consumes a lot of energy. Zixiao stood up and punched Jiraiya on the head. Jiraiya, how could I forget you? Look, aren't you inside? As Akabane spoke, he moved the painting over for Jiraiya to see. Jiraiya glanced at it and sure enough, there was a tall, imposing figure standing on the toad, looking quite imposing. Ah, I'm really awesome. He was overjoyed and had no idea that Akabane was setting him up. Shoma wanted to say something, but Zi Xiao shook her head and dissuaded her. He paused for a moment, then sighed, what an idiot. Damn it, Tsukumo. It's nothing, as long as you are happy. Zi Xiao shrugged. Akabane smiled slightly, focusing on controlling the direction of the illusion. All the abilities in the illusion were bestowed by him. In fact, if he wanted, the daimyo could even instantly experience the strength of a Kage-level powerhouse in the illusion. However, that kind of game is just like typing Who's Your Daddy in a single-player game, boring in low class. In fantasy, everyone can only redeem a skill once initially. For each wave of enemy attacks you withstand, you can redeem one more skill or piece of equipment. Furthermore, you will become stronger by killing enemies. Go fight, newbies! Jiraiya was incredibly arrogant, not even taking the Hokage, who was played by a daimyo, seriously. De Ming turned around. As the leader of a country, even if he is not a ninja, he still has basic leadership and command abilities. After a moment's thought, he said, I order that half of the people exchange for ninjutsu and the other half for equipment, and then give the equipment to the ninjas who possess the skills. As the leader, the daimyo's thoughts were simple. A bunch of weaklings have no fighting power whatsoever, only those with ninjutsu and equipment have sufficient fighting power. If these people were all ninjas, the daimyo really couldn't command them. They were just ordinary people, and their awe of the daimyo prevented them from objecting even though they were the ones chosen to exchange for equipment. This is equivalent to having your own ninja army. Daming thought to himself. He climbed to the top of the Hokage building and observed the village's situation from the highest point. Then, everyone, divide into 4 teams and guard the 4 directions of Konoha. Those without equipment or ninjutsu are responsible for taking the equipment off the enemy. The Lord continued to command. There are always nearly 400 people here. He gave 200 of them ninjutsu and equipment, so they had enough power to fight off enemies. It must be said that his choice was relatively the best he could have made. 3 minutes later, the enemy attacked. Under his command, more than 200 ninjas quickly dealt with the enemy and even took the initiative to expand their operations beyond the village. Outside the village, they discovered many wild monsters. The daimyo didn't notice them and ignored these resources, instead sending everyone back to resupply after the first wave ended. This time, he followed the same method as before. Half equipment, half ninjutsu. Grandpa, it looks like it's super easy. Erika was extremely pleased with herself. Thanks to the guard's help, she started with 2 ninjutsu techniques and a kunai, which allowed her to kill several enemies. Now, according to the game's rating, she is at the genin level. As for the 200 ninjas who received equipment in ninjutsu, they also reached the genin level. No, it's not that simple. Daming shook his head, resting his chin on his hand in thought. He felt he had overlooked something, but couldn't quite put his finger on it. The second wave is coming. Art Fire Escape Ho Fireball. Thunder Escape Earth Walk. With a series of ninjutsu techniques, the enemy was quickly eliminated. In less than a minute, all the enemies were wiped out, however. I'm out of chakra. I'm almost exhausted too. How do I restore chakra? When the second wave ended, the first thing everyone did upon returning wasn't to exchange for equipment or ninjutsu, but rather to ask how to restore chakra. Jiraiya smiled slightly and said, a newbie is a newbie. Of course, chakra needs rest to recover. What? Chakra? Page 92. Daming paused for a moment, then finally realized what he had forgotten. Releasing ninjutsu requires chakra. Everyone, take a break while you can, and remember to allocate your chakra wisely during the battle. Without chakra, can you defeat the third wave of enemy ninjas? He gradually began to panic. 1 minute later, the third wave arrived. Princess, the enemy has suddenly become much stronger. We cannot retreat, we must hold our ground. Even now, Erika doesn't dare to use ninjutsu casually, and most of the time she uses kunai for close-quarters combat. But even the low-level AI, modeled after genin, seems to be much stronger in combat than them. Unable to use ninjutsu freely, all the ninjas fought and ran, retreating from the gate to the street. A few minutes later, the battle finally ended. However, at a glance, it is obvious that there are far fewer ninjas with combat capabilities. Daimyo felt despair. Grandfather, we won't make it to the next level. Deming sighed. Without chakra, one is completely powerless against enemies. The fourth wave. Let's fight this battle with our backs against the wall. When a ninja dies, a replacement without ninjutsu is brought in. At this moment, everyone was involved in the battle, and there was no longer a distinction between ninjas and ordinary people. The battle was fierce. Erika survived with great difficulty, but her spirit was deeply shaken. Even without the sensation of pain, and with flesh and blood rendered in black and white, the fear brought by the death of a comrade cannot be erased. This feeling made her suddenly realize that war is not a game. After the fourth wave ended, only a handful of the more than 400 people remained, including Erika, who had also died in battle. I have no idea what his name is. Although he hadn't said it explicitly, he secretly believed that commanding ninjas in battle wasn't difficult. But now, the opponent's tactics are very rigid. Although most of them are ordinary people, they are skilled in ninjutsu and have the best equipment. He was far, far behind in both command and understanding of ninjas. At this moment, an unknown melody began to play, and Daimyo inexplicably sensed that the moment of final battle was approaching, even if this was only the fifth wave. A minute later, as usual, the enemy was coming. Where is the enemy? Daimyo was surprised. He didn't see any enemies, as if the other side had cancelled their attack. But at that moment, a figure appeared from the main gate of Konoha. That is Zabuza. It's Zabuza. The ninjas guarding the main gate shouted, but as soon as they shouted and prepared to fight, they saw the enemy suddenly swing his executioner's blade and his figure accelerate abruptly. In an instant, the three figures vanished. These people are all Chunin. Kirigakure no Jutsu. Thick fog enveloped him, and he felt a murderous aura lock onto him, but the vast fog made it impossible to find the other party's figure. Only when you truly face it do you realize how powerful a Jonin is. He didn't even have time to react, he only felt the world spinning as the images rapidly changed. Wow, that was great. The voice of Jiraiya. It was a very kind remark, but Deming instantly felt an urge to kill. Chapter 103 The Comic Con ends. Oh, you came out so quickly, looks like it's over. Mito Uzumaki smiled faintly. Daming was in a bad mood and gave a cold snort without replying. After a moment of contemplation, the third generation asked, Your Excellency, what happened to you? Aside from Akabane and those who have experienced it firsthand, it's difficult for others to understand what exactly they've encountered in an illusion. Yes, Grandpa, what's the fifth wave? Erika was also very curious. Deming opened his mouth, but found it a little difficult to speak. Could it be that he became the Hokage to protect Konoha, only to be instantly killed by Zabuza in one move? Also, wasn't that last sentence sarcastic? The fifth wave? The third generation awkwardly picked up his pipe. Although the details are unknown, it seems that Daimyo suffered a crushing defeat. This kid has absolutely no sense of propriety. Couldn't he have gone a little easier on him? After thinking for a long time, he still didn't know how to comfort her. Hiruzen, can we use Unreal Engine one more time? The more he thought about it, the more resentful he became. Do you think you can use such a large-scale illusion as many times as you want? Uzumaki Mito said irritably. Your Excellency, this kind of illusion can only be used once at most. The third generation explained. I see. The daimyo sighed, then thought for a moment and said, I'm sorry, I know too little about ninjas. Ha! Mito Uzumaki stared wide-eyed, somewhat incredulous. This stubborn old man was actually apologizing. Your talent lies not in ninjutsu and combat, but in ruling and managing the entire country. The third Hokage sighed and said, compared to them, ninjas are merely tools of war. War is a profound subject, and I probably won't be able to fully understand it in the rest of my life. Daimyo lay down, exhausted. After a series of setbacks, his interest in the game plummeted. It's good that you're aware of this. Nito Uzumaki didn't hold back and started mocking him. At this moment, Akabane, Jiraiya, Tsukumo, and Shursho arrived at the stands, and the four were about to salute the daimyo. No thanks. The daimyo's face was very unpleasant, his eyes glaring at Jiraiya, and he was extremely angry. That white-haired guy looks a lot like that annoying guy from The Illusion. Gentlemen, is it time for the comic convention to end? Shall we announce that? Akabane bowed and then asked. Akabane, you're exhausted, so go and rest. I'll tell you when it's over. The third generation smiled. Yes. Although the chakra consumption wasn't that high, Akabane was certainly happy to be able to take a break. The daimyo originally wanted to stay a little longer, but when he saw Jiraiya's face, he thought of words like rookie, wow, and well done. That's enough, Erika, we should go back now. He waved to someone to help him up. Erika was a little reluctant to leave, but the comic convention was over and they had to return to Daimyofu. The guards pulled the carriage over, while Erika and another subordinate helped the daimyo walk step by step to the carriage. At this moment, he suddenly stopped. Mito, after this, we may never meet again. Life is short, having come this far, every extra day is a bonus. The daimyo raised his head and said in a low voice, I'm sorry about what happened in the land of whirlpools. Get out. Mito Uzumaki waved her hand, her tone unfriendly. Tsunade said nothing. It seems the negotiations aren't going well. Akabane thought to himself. After the daimyo boarded the carriage and gradually disappeared from the mountain road, Mito Uzumaki sighed with a touch of melancholy. Their generation will eventually come to an end. The comic convention is over, everyone go back to the village to rest. The third Hokage used chakra to amplify his voice. The audience members in the other stands heard the noise and looked around to see that Daiming was already preparing to leave, realizing that the comic convention was really coming to an end. This is the end? It felt so short, I didn't even play for very long. Next time, that would probably be a long time from now. Many people were reluctant to leave, including the ninjas. It was just a short and rough around the edges comic convention, but for people like them who have very little entertainment, it was already a memorable event. Anime conventions don't have to be held in villages. As long as everyone is willing, they can hold their own anime conventions. Akabane stepped forward and spoke. Page 93. Organize your own comic convention? Everyone was stunned for a moment, their minds still a bit blank. They could put on a performance for the daimyo themselves? Ahem. Comic conventions can be big or small, and they're not really serious events. The third generation coughed lightly and said. If he hadn't insisted on inviting daimyo, this anime convention would indeed have been just a small, spontaneous event. I see. Everyone's eyes lit up after hearing that. They simply assumed that this event, like the Chunin exams, would become a large-scale official event. Turns out I can organize it myself. Great, Grandma, I want to play Lady Mito. A little girl shouted happily. Idiot, Lady Mito isn't a manga character. Amidst the cacophony of sounds, the constant was everyone's joyful laughter. Their voices were barely audible by the time they reached the central stands, but that was no problem for the ninjas. The third generation took a sip, feeling proud and satisfied. However, hey teacher, don't think you can avoid paying just because you said that. Tsunade pouted and said. Lord Sandai, you must not forget the promise you made. Akabane followed up by demanding payment. He's working so hard, isn't it all to bring the caravan to the land of wind? If 3 generations of people cross the river and then abandon the bridge, that would be unpleasant. Jiraiya was furious. You all benefited, but what about me? I worked so hard drawing, and the princess tore it up. You idiot Jiraiya, how dare you talk about your own paintings? Drawing such rude things in public is a disgrace to Konoha. Tsunade sneered. Alright, you'll get all the benefits. The third generation sighed. What an unlovable bunch of kids. But what a pity. Alright, you should all go back and rest now. Mito Uzumaki smiled faintly. Yes. Tsunade was overjoyed. It seemed Mito Uzumaki meant she wouldn't interfere with the money matters anymore. Akabane was curious about the outcome of the negotiations, but he wasn't in a hurry. We'll find out eventually anyway, so there's no need to rush. Staying here might just make us more likely to be conscripted. The group turned around and prepared to leave. Then, farewell. Zishao walked at the back, bowed slightly to say goodbye, and then caught up with the others. Mito Uzumaki watched them leave and sighed softly. At this moment, Danzo slowly emerged from the shadows. Monkey, Danzo, this old relic of the ninja world is not going to leave Konoha. I'll leave the land of whirlpools to you. Mito Uzumaki sighed. Lord Mito, please rest assured, I will do my best. Danzo was unusually serious. Whether for personal gain or emotional reasons, he will do everything in his power to help the Uzumaki clan. Even if the vast majority can't become ninjas, at least. The third generation took a drag of their cigarette halfway through their story. In this negotiation, the daimyo finally backed down. He allowed some members of the Uzumaki clan to escape into the Land of Fire, but apart from the Uzumaki clan in Konoha, the rest had to live in anonymity and could no longer be ninjas. Will Chapter 104 be able to be completed? The four of them returned to Konoha together, encountering many Konoha residents along the way. Akaba, well done. It's so beautiful, it's a pity you guys have to go participate in the Chunin exams. What are you saying? They should be happy that they can participate. Thanks to the Ninja Academy system, even those who are not ninjas still have a considerable understanding of ninjas. Therefore, when they meet, people either express their admiration and praise, or they ask about the Chunin exams. What? We clearly put in a lot of effort too. Jiraiya was also dissatisfied. This guy is clearly the one who slacks off the most, yet he's the one who steals the spotlight. Yes, you guys are great too. A familiar voice. Everyone turned around and saw that it was indeed an old acquaintance. Teacher. Uncle Sarutobi, you're here too, hee. Tsunade scratched her head sheepishly. She seemed to have forgotten to invite Sarutobi Nanichi, and the current situation was rather awkward. Since you didn't invite me, I had no choice but to shamelessly come with the clan chief. Sarutobi Nanichi said irritably. Hey, don't worry about the details. Ah, just kidding, you rascals, you've all improved so quickly, you've already surpassed your useless teacher. Sarutobi Nanichi laughed heartily. Unlike Hiruzen Sarutobi, he doesn't have much talent and is only a chunin at this point. Of the four Akabane, all except Jiraiya possess strength comparable to his. Wow, you've made such rapid progress. He patted Jiraiya's head and said, Jiraiya, you have to do your best. Damn it, it's me again, Teacher Nyeni. I'm already very strong. Jiraiya's head was pressed down, and he struggled fiercely. His hair was a complete mess, and Sarutobi Nin gave it a good ruffled pat before laughing and leaving without giving Jiraiya a chance to retaliate. Then, cheerful laughter echoed through the woods. Jokes aside, don't get so caught up in finding subjects for your paintings that you forget about your cultivation. Akabane said calmly, if you become the only one who loses the game, we will all be very embarrassed. Don't look down on me, I will become stronger. Jiraiya was angry, and also somewhat guilty. To find inspiration for a painting? This guy is like a ghost, he knows everything. What is drawing inspiration from nature in painting? Tsunade frowned slightly, feeling a little uncomfortable. It's nothing. Sometimes you need inspiration to draw. Don't be fooled by me sleeping at home every day, that's also a way for me to gather inspiration. Akabane waved his hand, not revealing the truth. Jiraiya is already pitiful enough, it would be hard to live with my conscience to trick him again. I'm going to mount Mayaboku right now. After Jiraiya finished speaking, he immediately looked for an opportunity to leave, so that Tsunade would not overthink things. I really envy you guys. Even though I don't have any talent, I still need to work hard. Zishao shrugged and followed her away. If only Jiraiya had left, Tsunade might have thought the worst, but now her doubts have disappeared. With only 3 days left before departure, everyone really needs to train hard. I'm going to continue my research on Chidori. Tsukumo glanced at the knife. Although Chidori has been successfully developed, it is not a complete ninjutsu because it cannot be used in conjunction with oneself. If you want to research this, you could consider making Chidori cover a wider area, or condensing it into a chakra weapon. Akabane offered Sasuke's Chidori Stream and Chidori Blade, 2 variations that are more suitable for Tsukumo. I had the same idea. As he spoke, Tsukumo drew the short sword from his waist. As chakra was injected, streaks of lightning appeared on the blade. Lightning-released chakra condenses on the blade, but it is unstable, sometimes resembling the blade and sometimes dispersing without any offensive power. Insufficient chakra control. Tsunade immediately recognized the problem, because she had encountered the same issue before. Yes. Shuamao sighed and sheathed his short sword. Chakra control. This is a training program that every ninja needs to master, but the level they can reach varies from person to person. While someone like Tsunade can make rapid progress with just a little training, Tsukumo might not be able to. Gone. He waved his hand, then jumped into a tree and quickly disappeared into the jungle. Akabane rested his chin on his hand, pondering for a moment. They're all running so fast, something's not right. Hey! Well, what happened? He stopped and looked over in confusion. Tsunade clenched her fist and threatened fiercely, "You actually killed Haku, I was going to beat you up." Page 94. Hey, the comic came out first. However, that ending was really touching. I'll let you off the hook because you came up with such a beautiful ending. Thank you very much. Akabane answered listlessly, but couldn't help but secretly complain in his heart. It's because I was deeply moved by the performance that I... Oh well, women are unreasonable anyway. Red Feather, do people really turn into bluebirds after they die? Tsunade was unusually sentimental, looking at the sky as she walked. Art knows no borders. Even with a slight adaptation, the story of Liang Shanbo and Zhu Yingtai transforming into butterflies still has immense appeal, at least Tsunade greatly admires it. The bluebird is a symbol of hope. If you believe it exists, then it does. Akabane felt that he should have a cigarette at this moment, as it would suit his sophisticated and artistic temperament. However, he didn't even have a pipe. If I could really turn into a bluebird, Grandma and Grandpa could still be together in the future. Tsunade said wistfully. The first generation has been dead for many years, and even as butterflies, they cannot be together. Besides, if someone were to learn the impure world reincarnation technique, they could at least pull the first Hokage up for a chat and properly think about dying. However, saying these things carries a 98.7% risk of getting beaten up. Akabane wisely kept quiet. By the way, what did you trade with the teacher? Tsunade suddenly remembered. Akabane mentioned this to the third Hokage from the stands, and when he met the third Hokage before, the third Hokage had entered the Hokage building right in front of him. Looking back now, this guy must have made a deal with the third generation first. Even if I don't agree to the third generation, the comic convention will probably still be held as scheduled and for free. It's nothing, I just want to ask the teacher for permission to bring the caravan to the Land of Wind. Akabane never intended to hide it from her, otherwise he wouldn't have asked directly in the first place. Take a caravan to the Land of Wind? Tsunade was somewhat surprised that the Naruto manga had gone to the Land of Wind. She thought for a moment, then advised, don't be fooled by the fact that Sunagakure is hosting the Chunin exams with us. The two countries have never been at peace. Your manga might be harder to sell there than in the Land of Whirlpools. I know, what I'm actually taking there is the Pirate King. Akabane shrugged. The Sand Village is restless, they're always thinking about expanding and becoming stronger. How could they possibly buy Naruto? One Piece is different. A story depicting the beautiful sea would definitely interest those landlubbers with a strong desire to conquer. Oh, it's that new comic with the weird art style. Tsunade said. Strange art style? One Piece is alright, there are even more bizarre art styles, like this one. You'll see the charm of this kind of art style later on. Akabane was full of confidence. He wasn't actually lying, the art style of One Piece is indeed quite good. He had considered getting into another wildly popular comic in his previous life several times, but the art style always deterred him, which he now regrets. Really? I'm really looking forward to it. But with updates happening at the same time, I doubt I'll be able to wait until it's finished. Tsunade muttered to herself, and by the time she realized what was happening, Akabane had already walked quite a distance. Wait for me, why are you walking so fast? I want to go home and sleep. Chapter 105 Chakra Weapons. Although Tsunade repeatedly urged Akabane to go back and intensify his training, once he got home. What is cultivation? The comic convention lasted less than half a day, but the preparation time took 3 or 4 days. Lying down and getting a good night's sleep is the thing to do right now. Until noon the next day. Akaba, wake up. The Grand Elder is coming today. Akabane was fast asleep when there was a loud knocking on his door. There was no other way but to get up. The Grand Elder? What's he doing here? He opened the door listlessly, and there stood Kurama Saki and the little girl. It seems they came to visit you, and also brought some supplies and rewards from the tribe. Kurama Saki smiled. This old man coming over can't be anything good. Akabane rubbed his messy hair. There's no such thing as a free lunch, the elder is always here to offer his help. How could you say that, child? Kurama Saki gave an awkward laugh. Although she felt the same way, saying it outright felt disrespectful. Anyway, there are no outsiders, and Xiao Qingyue won't tell anyone, right? Akabane said with a smile. Yes, but that old man might be here soon. I spotted him. The little loli nodded. Her family is used to her perceptive abilities, but they repeatedly emphasized that she should not reveal them to outsiders. You came really fast. Let me change my clothes and wash up. Akabane closed the door and quickly washed up and changed his clothes. When the Grand Elder arrived, he happened to be coming downstairs and met the Grand Elder face to face. The eldest elder of the Kurama clan is none other than Kurama Maki, the most senior member of the clan. Elder Genie, may I ask what brings you here today? Akabane sat down without any hesitation. He expended too much mental energy yesterday, and it still stings a bit, otherwise, he wouldn't have slept for so long. At the anime convention, the illusion ninjutsu you used was a variant of the Naruto sight technique, wasn't it? Kurama Maki solemnly said. Ah, that's true. Akabane nodded. This kind of ninjutsu had been researched in the clan before, but everyone later felt it was useless and gave up. Kurama Maki is the oldest member of the Kurama tribe, and knowledge is his only remaining treasure. Really? Kurama Maki was shocked for a moment, then took a deep breath and exclaimed in admiration, Akaba, you are truly an unprecedented genius of the Kurama clan. A crude and immature illusion modification is nothing at all. Akabane didn't think anything of it. With slight modifications, it can only achieve the level of dreamlike animation or games. Achieving true illusion magic will likely require a very long period of effort. That's already quite remarkable. Kurama Shinji-do. Genjutsu differs from ordinary ninjutsu, its mental power is more difficult to control and understand. For so many years, the Kurama clan has had many geniuses who have devoted their entire lives to perfecting illusion magic, but none of them have been able to succeed. Kurama Maki knelt down, leaned forward, and said in a bowing gesture, I would like to ask you to teach us this illusion technique. Elder Genie, Akabane, you. Kurama Saki was stunned for a moment. Kurama Maki's posture was almost like kneeling and begging. Sure, after all, we're all from the same family. Akabane stretched, at least he didn't come to their door saying he was handing over his ninjutsu for the sake of his clan. Just looking at this posture, I'm quite satisfied. By the way, you're going to participate in the Chunin exams, these are the gifts we prepared. As Kurama Maki spoke, she took out a sealed scroll. Akabane was slightly startled. Sealing scrolls are quite precious and are generally only used to store valuable items. What did Maki Kurama bring? He was so curious that he couldn't help but lean forward. Kurama Maki was very old, and his hand seals were very slow, but he was very serious about releasing the seal on the sealing scroll. The object shouldn't be very big, otherwise it would be in an open area. Akabane wondered to himself. All right. As soon as he finished speaking, he formed the last hand seal. Bang! A violent fluctuation of chakra arose from the sealing scroll, and 2 items appeared on the scroll immediately afterward. Akabane's eyes widened in surprise. A uniquely shaped pen and a specially made drawing board. These 2 items are the precious things that Masaki Kurama values so much? They are. Akabane picked up the iron pen and tried it out. As soon as he picked it up, he immediately felt the difference in material. It was a chakra weapon. That's right, a chakra weapon made of special materials. Kurama Maki nodded. Chakra weapons can withstand chakra, allowing the chakra to undergo a nature change effect on the weapon. Akabane picked up the drawing board and tried to infuse it with his own chakra. A layer of chakra membrane appeared on the drawing board, which seemed to be a change in earth attribute properties. I tried the pen again. Ink automatically floats up on top, and when flicked outwards, it instantly transforms into water droplets. Page 95. Hey, Akabane, how could you use such a dangerous ninjutsu in the room? Kurama Saki's expression changed. The next second, Akabane used his drawing board to block the water bullets one by one. With limited chakra input, the water bullets' damage was extremely limited. However, judging from the results, the drawing board's defensive capabilities are quite good. It's a really good weapon in armor. But an unsuccessful ninjutsu isn't worth such a high price. Kurama Maki's actions were more about investment and winning over people. Akaba had asked too little of the family during their time together. Thank you, Elder Genie. Akabane put away his paintbrush and canvas, now considering himself someone with a chakra weapon. No. You're welcome. Kurama Maki was stunned and answered blankly. Is that a change in the properties of water? He was secretly alarmed. In addition to genjutsu, this kid had also mastered earth, water, and even more chakra nature transformations. This talent was truly terrifying. We must make him accept the family. Kurama Maki thought to herself. He didn't ask about the change in water attribute properties, but after thinking for a moment, he said, We can't help you with ninjutsu, but if you have any other requests, just tell us. As for the requirements, I need a caravan when I go to the Land of Wind. Originally, I planned to hire people from the Yamano Izumi Co-Factory. Akabane said. Ha ha, what do you take the family for? We can handle this kind of small matter ourselves. Kurama Maki laughed heartily. In that case, thank you for your trouble. Akabane bowed slightly. It's all right. Maki Kurama waved her hand to indicate that she didn't care and was actually very happy. The more you interact with your family, the deeper your bond with them becomes. It's nothing, I'll be going now. Kurama Maki stood up and walked out shakily. Have a safe journey. Akabane got up and saw him off for a while, then returned to the house after watching him leave. He glanced at the chakra drawing tools on the table and couldn't help but feel a little emotional. These 2 items must have been custom-made beforehand, so they have little to do with his modification of illusion magic. Regardless of whether he performs at the anime convention, the Kurama clan will send him over to increase his chances of surviving the Chunin exams. It's hard to imagine that the family would decline to such an extent later on. Chapter 106 I'm not interested in Chunin. Early on the 3rd day, everyone gathered at the main gate of Konoha, and Akabane noticed that besides them and Orochimaru's group, there were 3 more people. Moonlight Night Dance, Sunset Crimson, and Sarutobi Shinosuke. I really didn't expect you guys to be participating in the Chunin exams too. Jiraiya exclaimed in surprise. Hey, how come we got better grades than you back in school? What's with this look of disdain? Sarutobi Shinosuke sighed helplessly. Even though I know Jiraiya very well, I was still very unhappy to hear those words. I didn't expect you two to be in the same class. It's because you're too lazy. Moonlight Night Dance sighed, offering no further explanation to Akabane. The more you interact with Akabane, the less surprised you become, because this guy is completely indifferent to the outside world. You're right, it's been a long time since I've seen Shinosuke. Akabane waved his hand as a greeting. Haven't seen you for a long time. Shinosuke waved his hand, then formed a hand seal and conjured a rock to serve as a seat. Give me one. Akabane walked over to him, poked him, and said, This is my personal stone bench. You'll have to use earth magic to make one yourself. Enough. Tsunade couldn't stand it anymore. She thought Shinosuke would be composed, but he unexpectedly conjured a stool using ninjutsu. If this continues, the gate will become a park. The others exchanged speechless glances and then went about their own business. Even the fiercest fist has to be met with respect. Shunin-sama, could you lend me a chair? I'm so weak I can't stand up. Akabane leaned against the table by the door. You are Kurama Akabane. Well, normally it shouldn't be allowed, but I'll do it for your sake. Shunin moved his chair to the side. Akabane was taken aback. Even the landlord's family had no surplus grain. He felt a little ashamed. I'm so sorry. Before he could finish speaking, he had already sat down. Tsunade was speechless. Did this look like she was embarrassed? However, the Chunin didn't mind and instead said excitedly, Akabane, your show that day was amazing, especially the last scene where Haku and Zabuza transformed into bluebirds. It was so touching. It's nothing, I just happened to think of it. He's such a fanboy. Akabane paused for a moment, then took out his drawing board and brushes. Brush. A painting is completed in just a few minutes. This is for you, thank you for the seat. Akabane smiled slightly. After all, he's a loyal fan of the manga, and he even gave up his seat to stand for so long. It would be really inappropriate not to give him some compensation. The Chunin took it and glanced at it, then exclaimed in surprise, This is. The painting vividly depicts a microcosm of the final scene of that day, the phantoms of Zabuza and Haku, along with two flying birds. By the way, what's your name? Akabane asked. Noara Chang. The ninja said with a smile. Noara, that's a really nice surname. Akabane paused for a moment, then quickly wrote his signature, along with Noara Naruto's name. Thank you. Noara Shigeki happily accepted it. If I give it to my son when I get back, he'll probably be very happy. After finishing his drawing, Akabane sat down to rest for a while. Is everyone here? Just as everyone was waiting anxiously, a voice came. Then, a ninja carrying a sword walked down the street. Upon seeing him, Tsukumo immediately became much more serious. Jiraiya stopped looking around, and Orochimaru and Shursho also stopped what they were doing. The stones beneath Shinosuke disappeared automatically, and he immediately stood up and saluted. Uncle Kazami, I never expected it would be you leading the team. Tsunade was somewhat surprised. Hello, Uncle Kazami. Akabane immediately sat up, awkwardly pushing the chair back. Sorry, I. Kazami Hatake nodded slightly, his expression revealing no emotion. Then, he looked around. After looking at them one by one, he said, This time it's not being held on home soil, we're going to the Land of Wind, and I'll be leading the team of Jonin. Finally, he looked at Akabane and glanced around curiously. Where is the caravan? They are all ordinary people. I told them to go ahead and wait in the Land of Rivers. Akabane explained. They were all ninjas, and could travel from Konoha to the border of the Land of Fire in a day, but the caravan was large and had a lot of goods, so it would take at least 2 or 3 days to travel from Konoha to the border of the Land of Fire. If we don't let the caravan go first, it will really turn into a tourist attraction. Very good, let's go. As he spoke, Kazami Hatake tossed a note onto the table. This is the pass. Noara Shigeki, of course, wouldn't stand in his way on such trivial matters. After bowing respectfully, he wrote down the names of several people on the list. With Kazami Hatake leading the team, the atmosphere became solemn and serious. Along the way, everyone hurried on their way and dared not chat for a moment. "Hey, Tsukumo, your father." After following for a while, Jiraiya couldn't resist any longer. He ran towards Tsukumo's side and took the opportunity to quietly ask him something. "Don't speak, just keep moving forward." Tsukumo replied coldly, then quickened his pace. Jiraiya was stunned. This guy has completely changed. Upon reaching the border of the Land of Fire, Kazami Hatake stopped, looked around for a moment, and said, "Let's rest here for a bit." Page 96. "Yes, father." Tsukumo sat down first, placing his short sword on his lap. Upon seeing the posture, Kazami Hatake paused for a moment before saying, "Tsukumo, don't be so formal. This is outside, so you should all relax." Yes. Lord Kazami, I never expected that you would be leading the team." Orochimaru smiled slightly. Tsukumo's situation clearly indicated that this was his first time leaving the village with Kazami Hatake, and he was eager to make a good impression on Kazami. However, from the moment Chidori was developed, Kazami Hatake had already recognized him. I didn't expect that either." Kazami Hatake sat on the ground, in a similar posture to Tsukumo. "Father has killed quite a few sand ninja, won't he be alright?" Shuomao was somewhat worried. Compared to the other ninja villages, the number of sand villages is relatively small. Kazami said casually. "It's probably because the Land of Wind only wanted to take advantage and didn't really commit their main forces. After all, even the second Kazekage didn't participate in the battle." Akabane interjected. The second Kazekage, Shaman, was the only second-generation leader of one of the 5 great shinobi villages to survive the First Shinobi World War. He also advocated for an alliance with Konoha. "At first they tried to benefit from both sides, but after we killed a bunch of them, they immediately formed an alliance to deal with the Land of Earth." Kazami Hatake nodded. In fact, those were the only sand ninja who died at his hands. If that wave hadn't won, the Land of Wind would probably have allied with the Land of Fire, but they definitely wouldn't have gotten their land back. Zishao pondered for a moment before speaking. "Definitely, you'll spit it out after you put it in your mouth?" Jiraiya pursed his lips. "Aside from Sunagakure, are there any other ninja villages?" Shinosuke asked. Small villages like Takigakure and Kyuzugakure are also participating. With the Great War just over, people from small ninja villages are likely to send out the genin who were in the war. Kazami Hatake nodded, his tone and expression serious. "So you can't underestimate your opponent." "It's okay, we are the strongest." Orochimaru smiled lightly. "Well, you guys can be the strongest, I'm not interested in Chunin anyway." Akabane leaned against the tree trunk, taking the opportunity to rest. Chapter 107 Special Jonin? Perfect. It was just a normal journey, and I recovered to about 70 to 80% in just a few minutes. However, Akabane was probably more concerned about his reputation, so everyone rested for half an hour before Kazami told everyone to get up and continue their journey. Before long, the group entered the Land of Rivers. The environment here is quite nice. Orochimaru was surprised, never expecting that there would be such a country nestled between mountains and water next to the Land of Wind. It is a buffer zone between the two countries of wind and fire. Kazami Hatake answered as he hurried along. This country is in a terrible state, much like the Land of Whirlpools now. Akabane pondered for a moment before speaking. Despite possessing fertile land, it was coveted by 2 powerful nations, resulting in numerous rebellious ninjas within its territory. There's no way this situation could possibly develop. We are heading to a relatively prosperous city in the Land of Rivers, but there are a lot of rogue ninja. Akabane continued. This information was obtained by him from Izumi-ko. Rogue ninja. Orochimaru licked his lips, showing no fear whatsoever, but rather excitement in his eyes. A rogue ninja? That means you can kill someone without taking responsibility. Hey, Orochimaru, what are you so excited about? Jiraiya said in a low voice. It's nothing, I'm just a little excited about the possibility of a battle. Orochimaru said calmly. They dare not attack Konoha. That's what Kazami Hatake said. Rogue ninja have their own rules, one of which is not to attack Konoha. This place is too close to Konoha. If we make a move, we'll die. They moved quickly, and soon after crossing the mountains and forests, the town came into view. The town is not large, but compared to the land of rivers, it is already a very prosperous area. I'll go find the caravan first. You all can have some fun. Upon arriving in town, Akabane prepared to part ways with the others temporarily. Hey, that's too dangerous. Tsunade said anxiously. Kazami Hatake didn't speak, but just watched them quietly. If you're worried, I'll go too. Orochimaru smiled faintly and said, it just so happens that I'm not interested in this area. If the two of us are together, we can look out for each other. Well. Kazami Hatake nodded. Since the Jonin had agreed, Tsunade had no choice but to let the two leave the team, even if she was worried. Father, are you alright? Shoamao frowned. He sensed that the two guys' purpose in leaving wasn't so simple. Do not care. Kazami Hatake's reply was very simple. As a Jonin and the head of a clan, he certainly didn't believe that Akabane's departure was simply to find a caravan. But what does it have to do with him? The land of rivers is chaotic and disorderly, and the rogue ninjas there are all wicked villains who commit all sorts of evil deeds. He had no objection to killing or whatever. However, if Akabane and Orochimaru want to leave the team, they will have to bear the consequences of leaving. After entering the city, form groups of 3 or 4 and have free time to move around. After finishing his sentence, Kazami Hatake took the lead and headed towards the town. Why did you follow me? I sense you're going to do something fun, so I'm joining in the fun. Orochimaru licked his lips, extremely excited. I'm just going to inform the caravan. King Akabane, do you even believe what you're saying? Orochimaru didn't believe it. Akabane was helpless. This guy is just like Jiraiya when it matters. My caravan is cooperating with others and has come to the land of rivers in disguise, hoping to open up a long-term trade route. Therefore, we cannot reveal our identity as Konoha ninjas. Akabane explained. Through Azumi Hiroshi Yamano's introduction, another caravan agreed to try selling comics, and this collaboration was to open up sales channels in the river country region. There are rules underground. If Konoha ninjas were to participate, it would actually be more troublesome in a place like the land of rivers. So that's it. Orochimaru chuckled and removed his headband. Transformation. In the blink of an eye, he had transformed into the appearance of the others. Akabane paused for a moment. It must be said that Orochimaru's mastery of transformation techniques is comparable to that of those obtained through the system. I just wanted to test out my newly created ninjutsu. If I don't encounter any enemies, I won't cause you any trouble. Orochimaru shrugged. We're already together, what's the point of saying all this? Akabane shook his head, and at the same time, he changed his appearance using the same transformation technique. Keep going forward and you'll reach the agreed-upon location. Kibakuin, you should have said that sooner. Orochimaru sneered and quickened his pace. I can already sense it. A lot of ninjas. Akabane walked slowly forward. Since Orochimaru was going to do it anyway, he's happy to save his energy. If Orochimaru can't even handle ordinary rogue ninjas, he might as well give up. Comics? What the hell? What's the point of these comic books? And did you get our permission to sell these things? Voices came from ahead. We have already paid Lord Bayang, and he has allowed us to trade here. Page 97. The caravan leader explained. Ba Jing? Unfortunately, Ba Jing has already been eliminated by us. The rogue ninja sneered, so you still have to pay money. Impossible. The caravan leader was stunned, somewhat incredulous. I saw Ba Jing yesterday, how could he have been killed in a single day? He's just a chunin, how strong do you think he is? Our leader is a special jonin. The rogue ninjas looked on with disdain. Although the strength of special Jonin is not as great as that of Jonin, they are still very formidable. How could mere Chunin possibly be their match? It seems there's no way to resolve this peacefully. The caravan leader sighed softly, and the ninjas belonging to the Kurama clan prepared to make their move. At this time, a voice sounded. "Are you the rogue ninja who control this street?" A cold, stern figure slowly emerged from the shadows. When everyone saw his face, they immediately tensed up. This guy's face was covered in scars, and he didn't look like someone to mess with. "Who?" "We are Lord Jinsha's subordinates. If you dare to deal with us, Lord Jinsha will not let you off." This face clearly shows a ruthless character from the battlefield. These rogue ninjas are not very strong, they can threaten ordinary people, but they are all at the bottom of the ninja ranks. They were afraid of dying and didn't dare to fight back. Who is he? A newly arrived rogue ninja. The Kurama clan ninjas hidden in the caravan became alert. This guy's aura was dozens of times more dangerous than Tomo's. Under the transformation technique, no one recognized Orochimaru now. Gold sand? A special Jonin, perfect. Orochimaru chuckled coldly, his eyes blazing with murderous intent. Lead the way, or shall I take action? We'll lead the way, please don't kill us, please don't kill us. Before Orochimaru could speak, they knelt down and begged for mercy, then hurriedly got up and led the way. Orochimaru wants to find the other side's leader? That's a special Jonin. Akabane frowned slightly, then formed hand seals and created a shadow clone. Without needing to communicate, both the original body and the clone already understood each other's intentions. Let's go then. Orochimaru's expression was indifferent, he had no interest in fighting these lackeys. It's only interesting when you're a special Jonin. As he turned around, he couldn't help but lick his lips excitedly. Chapter 108 Illusion Technique Instant Kill. Akabane's goal in establishing the trade route wasn't to make a lot of money, but rather to promote it and earn more points. With only a small plot of land in Konoha, the income is still too slow. However, to gain a foothold in the land of rivers, it is essential to cultivate good relations with the local powerful figures. Directly subduing them is also a good option. Akabane followed Orochimaru, while secretly observing the town streets. There are many shops on both sides, and the streets are bustling with people. It is indeed one of the most prosperous towns in the land of rivers. The house in front, that house used to belong to Bajing. This morning, our leader killed Bajing. Stop talking nonsense and lead the way. Orochimaru gave him a cold look, and the rogue ninja immediately fell silent in fear. Yes. Without saying a word, he quickly continued leading the way. Upon reaching the door, the group's legs trembled. This trip didn't yield much protection money, instead, it brought back outsiders. They could imagine the terrible punishment they would face when they returned. Humph. A soft chuckle escaped their lips, but instead of feeling relieved, they felt a chill run down their spines. They might die if they went inside. If they don't go inside, they'll die immediately. Squeak. As soon as I pushed open the door, the stench of blood hit me. Orochimaru sniffed around, fewer than 10 had died. It seemed the rogue ninja here were quite law-abiding. You came back so quickly, is someone dissatisfied? A cold voice rang out. No. Yes. Okay? Jinsha was getting impatient and walked from inside the house to the front of the hall. Orochimaru frowned slightly. Judging from his attire, this guy is a sand ninja. A rogue ninja from Sunagakure? Orochimaru's expression turned serious. Several rogue ninjas scrambled to the edge of the gold sand, then pointed at Orochimaru and cried out, "Boss! Boss, it's this guy!" However, the next second, the group suddenly began to convulse until they collapsed. Jinsha glanced at it, then looked at Orochimaru. A master of poisons. Who are you? I was just about to ask, the land of rivers is the territory of us rogue ninjas, and you, a sand ninja, come here, are you looking for death? Orochimaru's murderous intent was fully revealed. Heh, you said it yourself, this is the territory of rogue ninjas, so of course I'm a rogue ninja here too. Jinsha said with a cold laugh. Dark place. Akabane saw a figure emerge from the wall beside him. Puppet? Using words to attract attention and then launching a sneak attack with a puppet, that's typical Sand Village style. He got up, ready to kill the puppet. However, Orochimaru secretly made a gesture with his hand behind his back, meaning to remain still. That's hard to say. You could also be a spy from Sunagakure, trying to take control of this paradise of rogue ninja. Orochimaru gave a slight, cold smile, his face contorted with menacing scars, exuding a palpable murderous aura. How could that be? I killed. As Jinsha finished speaking, a cold smile appeared on his lips, and his fingers, hidden behind his back, kept twitching. Knock knock knock. Poison needles were sprayed out, and at the same time, the puppet detached from the roof and flew over. However, Orochimaru's body contorted in an unbelievable way as poison needles flew past him. He then wielded a kunai and swiftly struck backward. Boom! Caught off guard by the sudden attack and the puppet being far away, even though Jinsha's control skills were already very high, he still couldn't perfectly dodge the attack, and Orochimaru directly dislocated the puppet's arm. Software modification? Although it was only a basic soft softening modification, it is evident that Orochimaru's research has already yielded some results. I didn't expect you to have some skills. Jinsha pulled the puppet back to protect it in front of him, his expression becoming much more serious. Compared to Bajing, this guy is way better. I didn't expect you to be so incompetent. Orochimaru sighed. A special jonin from Sunagakure, I thought he was a strong fighter, but I was wrong. If you wanted to provoke me, you succeeded. Jinsha said calmly. As he was speaking, the puppet suddenly turned back and lunged forward. This time, the chakra threads were shorter and the control was more precise, arriving in front of them in the blink of an eye. At the same time, boom! Below, a small, oddly shaped insect puppet emerged from the ground. Two puppets? Orochimaru was slightly startled, and quickly formed hand seals. Wind escape big breakthrough. The wind howled, slowing the puppet's advance. In that instant, Orochimaru twisted his body to dodge the insect puppet's attack, and at the same time made a gesture, attack. Tiger seal? What kind of technique is this? Jinsha racked his brains, but couldn't recall any book that started with a tiger seal. Follow. He saw a thick fog sweeping in. Page 98. The technique of concealing oneself in the mist? Mist ninja? How could there be mist ninja in this place? Jinsha was horrified and ran away. However, the next second, he felt several sword shadows appear. Knife? The 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist. The moment the thought crossed his mind, a massive decapitation blade flew past his neck. In reality, as soon as the mist rose, Orochimaru saw blood shooting into the sky. Let's go. Akabane's voice came from behind him. Flash sale? Orochimaru was slightly taken aback, somewhat incredulous. This guy can control 2 puppets at the same time, so it's not surprising that he became a special jonin. But is what's happening before my eyes an illusion? This kind of destructive illusion is simply unscientific. His mental strength is weak, and he's easier to deal with than a chunin. Akabane explained. If you kill him, you can take over this territory and make it a base. Orochimaru licked his lips and said, If you're interested, you can do it for me. If not, I'll split up and come back to clean it up. No, I'm interested. Orochimaru immediately agreed. On the way here, countless thoughts had crossed his mind. Now is the perfect time to achieve one of them. Then the condition is that you help me conceal the mist concealment technique. Akabane smiled lightly. Of course. By the way, do you want to learn my ninjutsu? Orochimaru smiled kindly, though his transformed appearance was indeed somewhat terrifying. Software modification? Forget about it. Akabane immediately shook his head and refused. You're Orochimaru, the man who's destined to become a snake, but I still want to be human. Unfortunately, I thought Akabane-kun would be interested. Orochimaru sighed softly, lamenting that he could not share his research findings with others. In his view, for Akabane to obtain this ability, the release of illusions would be even more covert and terrifying. However, Akabane was genuinely uninterested. He doesn't need to be self-sufficient, so why cultivate such a soft body? As for casting illusions, once I've acquired all the Vortex clan physiques, I can just use shadow clones to replace them. Chakra is abundant, so capricious. By the way, just leave this to the shadow clones so as not to arouse suspicion later. He hadn't dared to create 2 clones before because he was afraid the battle would be too difficult, and he also didn't want to affect Orochimaru. Now that the gold dust problem is being solved, there are naturally no such concerns. No problem. Orochimaru nodded and formed hand seals to create shadow clones. He didn't have as much chakra as Akabane, but while the shadow clones were active, it was more than enough to deal with the situation here. He had a lot of experience dealing with these rogue ninjas. If we add some benefits to the deterrent, these people will not dare to act recklessly. In terms of deterrence, Jinsha's death is already shocking enough. What's lacking is the benefit. Chapter 109. Nobody buys it? Then it's free. After finding an opportunity to replace the clone, memories of this period resurfaced in my mind. The caravan leader was named Yanagawa Taro, and he traveled to the Land of Rivers to sell some basic iron tools. Young Master Akabane, it seems our cooperation has to be terminated. Lu Chuanhui was at a loss. They had never had any problems with their trade because of the protection of Baiyang. Who would have thought that Baiyang would be destroyed by a new enemy? Before understanding the nature of the new local tyrant, all trade is difficult to conduct. Golden Sand? Don't worry, our clan's ninjas will handle him. Akabane said calmly, the most important thing right now is, do you think the manga can sell here? Lu Chuanhui did not think that violent solutions were a good thing, but if negotiations failed, this was the only option. After Akabane finished asking his question, he pondered for a moment and then shook his head, saying, to be honest, we are not optimistic. The Land of Rivers is too chaotic, and it will be difficult for your kind of entertainment products to sell. Professional businesspeople are naturally more authoritative in these areas. Akabane did not deny it, but continued to ask other questions. What about the Land of Wind? The same. That's what the person who was going through the merchandise and keeping accounts said. The Wind Kingdom has great ambitions. They use all their money to research and purchase weapons of war. How could they possibly buy something like this? Yanagawa Taro continued to shake his head. If it weren't for Yamano Izumi's influence, he would never have agreed to a trial sale. Akaba, they're right. It's too difficult for the Land of Wind to sell this kind of thing. Even the people of the Saddle Horse tribe didn't think highly of it. They also engage in business, and although it is only within the Land of Fire, they are also somewhat knowledgeable about foreign business opportunities. What if we don't sell it? Akabane thought about it. Anyway, he was just doing it for points. It would be best if he could make money, but if he couldn't, he would lose money but still get publicity. Not selling? Not only Yanagawa Taro, but even Akabane's clansmen couldn't understand it. Not selling. What's the point of going through all that trouble to open up trade routes? Yes, I just saw some taverns around here. What if we partnered with the taverns and regularly gave away comics for free? Akabane smiled and said, of course, I'll pay. Why do this? Lu Chuanhui was dumbfounded, completely unable to understand the significance of this. Not making money? Are we going to spend money to appease these traitorous villains? Let them see some for free, and then sell them for a fee later. Akabane smiled slightly and said, although some people will circulate it among themselves or print it illegally, they can still make some money. Your idea. Lu Chuanhui paused for a moment, then thought about it carefully and realized that this was actually not impossible. However, the profit margin will still not be very high. Why, can't it? No, it's just that the profit margin might still not be very high, so you should be prepared. That's what Yanagawa said. It's okay. If you want to develop a habit of reading comics, you always have to pay a price. Akabane didn't take it to heart. Offering services for free initially is a way to generate revenue more efficiently later. Of course. In fact, Akabane had even more ideas, such as including promotional advertisements in the manga. However, since I don't have any industries worth promoting, I'll leave it at that for now. In that case, are we officially establishing a partnership? Akabane said. Yes, I will bring you comics in the future, but you will need to negotiate with the tavern yourself. That's what Yanagawa said. Don't worry, we'll take care of that. This is what Anma Mountain Source said from the side. He was the leader of the caravan that accompanied the Kurama clan, and also a special jonin. In that case, Uncle Shan Yuan, you leave a group of people here, and the rest of you come with me into the land of wind. Akabane said. Okay. Shan Yuan nodded, and then began to issue orders. As Akabane walked out of Yanagawa shop, he saw a lot of people gathered around the stall looking at comics. Business seems to be very bad. Orochimaru smiled slightly. He had been observing from the doorway since the very beginning. There were many people coming and going, and quite a few people were looking at the comics, but most of them were just looking and hardly anyone actually paid to buy them, at least not one had started from where he was standing. It's okay, we'll lose money to gain publicity. Akabane didn't take it to heart. There were quite a few ninjas in this town. Although the strongest were only at the level of special jonin, they could still contribute a lot of points. As long as you have points, money doesn't matter. How about it, are we ready to go? Orochimaru glanced back. They had already spent a lot of time, and if it got any later, they probably wouldn't be able to reach the towns inside the Land of Wind before evening. We'll have to wait a little longer. Akabane sat down, not in a hurry to leave. If it really comes to it, we can stay here for the night, anyway. Anyway, you have a lot of influence, humph humph humph. Orochimaru chuckled in a low voice. He had cooperated with Danzo, thanks to his knowledge of the information on many clan leaders in the village. Kazami Hatake is known for his meticulousness in completing missions. Not only did he let everyone rest more, but he also agreed to let Akabane leave the team. It was clear that he was treating Akabane exceptionally well. Page 99. I didn't eat the face-saving fruit, so where does the face come from? Akabane curled his lip. He had only met Kazami Hatake once before, so there was no special treatment between them. What is face fruit? Orochimaru was taken aback, not understanding whether Akabane's words were humorous or meant anything by them. If you eat the fruit of your imagination, everyone will give you face. Akabane made a casual joke. Orochimaru was stunned, then realized that this guy must be joking. There's no such fruit in the world. At this moment, Anma Yuan came out of the house. He glanced at Orochimaru, then calmly said, Akabane, I've left 5 chunin behind, the rest of you will come with us to the Land of Wind. 5 chunin. If Jinsha hadn't been killed, these 5 wouldn't have been enough to fill a tooth gap. However, even if Orochimaru couldn't handle it, the remaining 5 people could still deal with the newly appointed local tyrant. Due to the impact of war, the Land of Rivers has always been very poor. Apart from a few refugees, almost no one would run this way, and most of the refugees were only at the level of chunin or genin. However, considering this, the origin of gold dust is probably not simple. Akabane glanced at Orochimaru as he walked. If that guy was sent by Sunigakure, things are probably going to get a bit complicated. However, the manner of Kinch's death is more in line with the methods of the Hidden Mist village. As long as Orochimaru is not caught, escaping would be a piece of cake. As they walked along the street, many people stared at them with predatory eyes. The chaos in the Land of Rivers is evident from this. Not long after, Akabane saw Jiraiya. This guy must have done something wrong, because he was tied up. Ha, an idiot is an idiot. Seeing this, Orochimaru couldn't help but provoke Jiraiya. You stinking Orochimaru, I'm going to kill you. Jiraiya struggled excitedly, but he was bound by ropes and couldn't move at all. What's the situation? Anma Sanjen was a little confused. He remembered that this guy was one of their own. Kazami Hataki's lips twitched slightly, and he finally said simply, "It's nothing, let's go." Needless to say, he was arrested for taking photos. Akabane shrugged, showing no sympathy for his bound companion. Chapter 110. Can we set up a stall here? A long time ago, I came to the land of wind with my father. So many years have passed in the blink of an eye. The same scenery, the same yellow sand in Gobi Desert. Faced with this scene, Anma Mountain Source couldn't help but sigh repeatedly. Kazami Hataki didn't speak, but instead looked warily in one direction and called out, "Friends from the sand village hiding in the shadows, we've come from Konoha to participate in the Chunin exams." Kazami Hataki. Humph, I didn't expect it to be you leading the team. Sand Ninja. Everyone was startled and quickly looked towards the direction from which the sound came. Before them appeared a strange monster. Puppet. Anma Shinyuan's expression was solemn. This is a puppet? Tsunade looked at it curiously. From the outside, it seemed to be a kind of mechanism. The main body hides away, using the puppet to fight. Zi Shao secretly remembered it. These are all fighting habits of the Sand Ninja, which will be of great help to them in the upcoming Chunin exams. Let's go. Kazami Hataki stopped looking at him and turned to head towards Sunagakure. Damn it, that guy. The ninja hidden in the sand paused for a moment, then gritted his teeth in anger. This guy didn't even say hello. However, who remembers the name of that nobody? The Hataki clan is exceptionally talented. For example, Kazami was an elite jonin in the battle. For him, enemies who were not jonin were not worth remembering. Moreover, he's someone who hides his true intentions. After traveling for a while, Kurama lifted the carriage door and saw Akabane lying limp inside. He asked with concern, "Akabane, are you alright?" "It's nothing, just a little exhausted." Akabane's voice was weak and listless. Half of it was true, and half of it was an act. Since entering the land of wind, the dryness, heat, and sandstorms have made it difficult for him to adapt. "If you're not feeling well, of course you should lie down. It looks like it's getting better. Normally, after a little more rest, it should be able to get out of bed and walk." Tsunade leaned over for a look, then said with certainty. She had learned some medical skills from Mito, and although she hadn't used them in a long time, Akabane's condition wasn't even considered an illness, so diagnosing the symptoms was no problem at all. "No. Don't say that, I'm quite ill." Akabane choked for a moment. Does this guy already have this kind of medical skill? Having finally managed to lie down, he had no desire to stand up and walk on this damn desert road again. "You just want to slack off, don't you?" Tsunade looked at her with disdain, but her posture. "TCH, you clearly want to sit too." Akabane lay down comfortably. "There's a saying that goes, it's not that I'm afraid of a smart opponent, it's that I'm afraid of an opponent who has no desires or ambitions." If Tsunade has a need, then things are easier to discuss. Hey. Tsunade smiled and sat down on the edge of the car, refusing to get out. Koramayama opened his mouth, but ultimately remained silent out of rationality. If you want to live a good life, you have to turn a blind eye to some things, since he can't afford to offend either of them. Besides, it's no big deal to hitch a ride. However, even horses find it difficult to adapt to the desert in Gobi. They moved forward slowly, step by step, until the weather gradually cooled down in the afternoon. As darkness fell, finally. Sunagakure village, we've arrived at Sunagakure village. Jiraiya's voice sounded. Akabane immediately lifted the curtain. Not far away, a building with a distinct Sunagakure style appeared before him. The sky was dark, but under the dim sunlight, Sunagakure appeared incredibly beautiful and lovely in everyone's eyes. Finally reached. Akabane lifted the curtain and saw the desert-style house, feeling a surge of emotion. "I'm never coming back to this awful place again. Hurry up and find a place to stay, I can't wait to take a shower." Tsunade shouted. After walking for a long time in the desert, they finally arrived at Sunagakure village. Everyone was eager to go to their lodgings to take a bath and rest. Akabane got out of the car and joined the others to enter Sunagakure. As they approached the door, they suddenly sensed a murderous aura. Turning their heads, they saw a boy who was only slightly older than Akabane and the others, staring intently at them from a distance. Kazami Hatake glanced at him sideways, then ignored him. "The ninja of Konoha, it's you." The Chunin guarding the gate didn't recognize him at first, but when Kazami Hatake looked at him, his face and eyes instantly brought back memories. He was somewhat frightened, his hand holding the pen was trembling. Just then, the boy in the distance walked over. The Chunin at the door felt ashamed, bowed slightly to the boy, and took a deep breath to calm himself down. The young man nodded in response, then his gaze swept over the crowd, and he frowned, saying, "Guests from Konoha, huh? How come there are so many people?" The caravan was mentioned to Lord Kazekage. Kazami Hatake said calmly, "All right, welcome everyone. Please register your names first, and then I will take you to your rest area for today." He didn't dwell on it and simply brushed it off. Akabane observes in secret. The boy had dark blue hair and looked young, but the fact that the Chunin had bowed to him earlier indicated that he was of high status. Such characteristics. The future third generation? Not only that, this guy isn't wearing a Chunin uniform, so he might still be a genin. Sha has a really tough card up his sleeve. He remained outwardly calm, but inwardly he was extremely surprised. The third Kazekage was destined to be the strongest Kazekage in the future. Although he died a miserable death, he was indeed a dignified person in life. I need to remind everyone. Akabane shifted his gaze from him to the autograph sheet on the table. Several names are already on the list, written by Chunin. Kazami Hatake glanced at the list, calmly wrote down the names of the others, and then handed the list to the gatekeeper Chunin. "Distinguished guests, please follow me." Page 100. The blue-haired youth remained respectful and led the way. After walking for a while, Akabane asked, "What's your name, young man?" "My name is Sasuke." He smiled as if there was no threat involved. "As you can see, I'm from a caravan. I'd like to inquire about suitable locations around here for setting up stalls or organizing events?" Akabane asked. Setting up stalls, or organizing events? Suna took a moment to think, and after a long pause, he half-guessed Akabane's meaning. After thinking for a moment, he said, "It's getting late, let me lead the way and we'll talk." "All right." Akabane, of course, wouldn't refuse, it was just a matter of striking up a conversation. In Naruto, the third Kazekage was not spared, but he was quite certain that the person in front of him was the third Kazekage. Because of the caravan, they were much slower than others, so they saw many ninjas from other villages along the way. However, with Kazami Hatake leading the way, no one from the other villages dared to provoke him, and they all dispersed. As he walked, Akabane came across a plaza. In the square, many ninjas were training, while others were observing and gathering intelligence. "Hey, Shajie, can I set up a stall here?" Akabane immediately asked. "Setting up a stall? Here?" After hesitating for a moment, Suna said, "I can't decide that, I'm afraid I'll have to ask Lord Kazekage." "It's okay, we won't have time today anyway." Before Akabane could reply, Kurama Gen immediately spoke up to prevent the boy from making any further unreasonable demands. Setting up a stall on the training ground is absolutely outrageous. Unlike him, Zi Zhao's eyes lit up when she realized that it would be easier to gather intelligence here. Suna nodded apologetically, then stopped after turning a corner. He pointed ahead and said, "Distinguished guests, your accommodations are just ahead. This house is made entirely of piled-up sand and gravel, but it looks more impressive than the others, which shows that Sunagakure treats Konoha better." Grateful. Kazami Hatake nodded in acknowledgement and then went inside first. Chapter 111 Book equals Knowledge. The room was large and the interior was so luxurious that it didn't look like a temporary place to stay. Kazami Hatake took a walk around, then gave a cold laugh and said, "Sunagakure really likes to pull stunts. Looks like they specially gave us the best house, TSK." Clearly, Kurama Gen had some understanding of the Sand Village's style of warfare. "It's so comfortable to have such a nice house." I'm going to take a shower. Jiraiya was incredibly excited. He had never lived in such a big and nice house before. I'm going to take a shower too. Someone, don't do anything embarrassing, or I'll make you a ninja who can't talk. Tsunade clenched her fist, her face filled with murderous intent. Jiraiya felt a chill run through him and slumped down, not daring to speak. Then, let's rest first. That's what Kazami Hatake said. Akabane didn't rush to share his guesses, since there were still 2 or 3 days until the Chunin exams, and there was no need to rush. He went upstairs and randomly picked a room. Then, a shadow clone was created. Please continue drawing Naruto, thank you. Akabane stretched, then packed his clothes and prepared to take a shower. The shadow clone looked at the tools in front of it and remained silent for a moment. Episode 34, I think. Sand Ninja appeared. He thought for a moment and then began to draw. As for the true self. Naturally, I took my clothes and went for a bath. Sunagakure is very poor, there are hardly any bathhouses in the entire village. However, their residence had its own bathhouse, and when he arrived, Jiraiya and Orochimaru were already taking a bath. Hey, you two are here early. Akabane lay down comfortably, the warm water making him feel relaxed all over. The arid desert was something he really couldn't adapt to. Orochimaru leaned against the edge of the pool, his eyes slightly closed, but his expression was extremely solemn. In contrast, Jiraiya was completely enjoying himself, without any pressure whatsoever. A moment later. Orochimaru couldn't help but say, Akabane, the one who led the way. Ah, that's not simple. Akabane nodded, his expression unchanged, but his tone became much more serious. The future third Kazekage, and the strongest user of magnet release ninjutsu. Even though he's not at his peak now, he's still incredibly strong among genin. Ha? I don't feel anything. Jiraiya asked suspiciously. Ah. Orochimaru didn't say anything, but his soft chuckle was the biggest mockery. Jiraiya was furious. What's with this guy's smug attitude? He's strong, but you guys aren't weak either. As for me, I'll just be a genin. You can take any chunin opportunity you want. Lying in the water, drowsiness kept creeping in. Akabane rubbed his body. At this moment, the others gradually arrived. He turned to the side and nodded, everyone, I'm leaving now after I've finished washing up. You should get some rest. We need you to set up a stall and do some activities tomorrow. I am concerned, Shan Yuan said. Yes, got it. Akabane waved his hand, took back the clothes he had changed out of, and then sent a shadow clone to help him wash the clothes. He then returned to his residence. In the residence. Well done, you've already drawn quite a few. Akabane picked it up and read a few pages. Episode 34 is already halfway through. No problem? The clone said in a low voice. What? You know. The clone continued drawing, and thanks to the main body's ever-increasing physical attributes, the clone's drawing speed also increased. No problem, I have my own plans. Akabane smiled slightly. He then tossed his clothes aside and lay down on the bed. He was quite tired after lying in the carriage all day. He just wanted to rest for a while, but he fell asleep on his own not long after. Early the next day. Dong dong dong. There was a loud knocking on the door. Akabane was still not awake, but outside the door was not only Kurama Genji, but also Tsunade. If you don't get up, I'm unlocking the door. Tsunade's voice came in. Akabane's dazed mind cleared up a bit in an instant, then he stiffened slightly. Wait, I'm awake. He immediately jumped out of bed and quickly got dressed. This woman never enters his house through the front door, and unlocking the door is definitely not a normal method. The Chunin exams are going to last a long time, and he doesn't want his lock to be forcibly broken on his very first day here. What's wrong, so early in the morning? Akabane quickly opened the door and saw Kurama Gen and Tsunade standing in the doorway. Sunagakure has agreed to let us set up a stall there, so it's time to get going. Anma Mountain Source said. You agreed? Okay, I'll do it right away. Akabane tidied up the drawings on the ground, then hurried over to clean up the rest of the drawings. He went to bed early yesterday and didn't even realize when his clone disappeared. After tidying everything up, he came downstairs and found that Sasuke had been waiting downstairs for a long time. Not only that, besides him, there's also the second-generation Kazekage, shaman. Such a high-profile presence? Akabane was astonished. All he had to do was apply for a stall, and even the leader of the Sand Village had come. Wait, could it be a place that collects rent? He pondered it to himself, and felt that it really might be possible. They've finally arrived, Konoha's Kurama Akabane. Shaman said calmly, "Are you the one who wants to rent the training ground?"